Hello and welcome to the Hurling Show here on OurGame. Myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Michael Verney. We're brought to you by OurGameRetro.com. Look, with the weekend that it was, seeing Tyrone win the All-Ireland final, I couldn't but wear the Tyrone Orga jersey. Fantastic win for Tyrone, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. But quite a weekend, and you were in the Camogie final too. We'll come to that a little bit later on, but a pulsating win for Galway, of course.
Yeah, brilliant win for Galway. Right good game and a proper advertisement for Camogie. And I think since the rules have changed, and if you get the right referee that swallows the whistle somewhat on the big day, like that's the first time in a while that you could say there was a really enjoyable Camogie final that was end-to-end. The referee played a big part in that. The two teams obviously played a massive part, and the rules and the fact that there was just a nice bit of physicality allowed, played a huge role in that. But all in all, it was a, great weekend. Saturday, obviously, a lot of people probably didn't get the result they wanted, me included, I won't lie, because I would love to see Mayo winning. But it just gives the curse is a load of nonsense, but this just gives yet more oxygen to it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And you mentioned the referee in the Camogie final. I thought Liz Dempsey was absolutely excellent, and it was a great game. We will talk about that a little bit more. We're going to do the little burp there. We're going to do the top 10 hurlers at the moment. The last time we did it was late July, but I think things have changed a little bit since then. The likes of Joe Canning is retired. He's no longer an inter-county hurler. We'll talk about Portumna's match against Ballindereen as we go on in the show. There's so much to talk about. The Tipperary Championship, Kilkenny, Galway, Limerick, huge news in Wexford as Oulart get relegated. A couple of comments flying in here already. Simo Justice, can't wait to hear Shane try to avoid the topic of Killarwan beating Burris. That was, of course, in the Tipperary Championship over the weekend. I certainly will not avoid it. We'll come to that a little bit later on. But the thing we have to start off with is the personalised abuse that we're seeing in the GAA. And I think the big one has to be Aiden O'Shea. And fine, he hasn't scored in the All-Ireland finals he's played. He didn't have a blockbuster performance, but I thought he had a good first half. And you know what? There was a couple of times, talking to different people and their views on the match. There was a couple of times in the second half, most notably when Tommy Conroy burst through and dragged a shot wide on the left-hand side. And O'Shea was standing there at the edge of the square, just waiting for Conroy to draw the man and give a hand pass across, palm it into the net. You look at Tyrone. They didn't score with their feet in the second half from play. It was 2 goals where it was like a punch in from McShane, a palm to the net from McCurry. And Mayo just absolutely refused to do it. They've lost 2 All-Ireland finals in a row where all 4 goals scored, losing both games 2-14-15. All 4 goals are palmed to the net. This is the first time ever. I wanted them to win. I was sickened after the game. But for once, this is the one time I was actually angry with Mayo. You had so many goal chances. Score even one of them and you would have won it. But and we'll talk about that later on. But the abuse that Aiden O'Shea is getting, like Limerick Drive for 5 here says, as far as personalised abuse goes, there's little room for it, and none at all for folks who don't court the airwaves. McStay, Hoare and Keegan O'Shea have a lot to learn from Kieran MacDonald. Adrian McGrath says the abuse of Aiden O'Shea is disgusting. He made a far bigger contribution than half of the rest of them. Lads like Durcan O'Connor and McLaughlin were really poor, but not a word about it. Given his performance, Limerick Drive for 5 says, criticism is warranted. What is not is unabated vitriolic abuse from one paid analyst towards a player, albeit that player might have made better decisions. And obviously that's referring to Joe Brawley and the article he did about Mayo. But when it comes to the amount of abuse and focus on players, some people will say Aiden O'Shea puts in for it. Some people saw the video with Pear Mobile, where he's, being filmed on the beach and all that kind of promo work that he did. And that's fine, but that doesn't mean he deserves to get absolutely slated in the personal abuse going on here.
No, I don't know how you put yourself up for it. He's getting paid to do a job with whatever sponsorship he's doing. I don't think that should play into it. I think a lot of it is to do with the small-minded nature of a lot of Irish people, to be honest with you, and a lot of people do not like to see people putting themselves out there, and do not like to see people courting the spotlight at all. He does have a massive profile within the GAA. Should he use that to exploit for his own personal gain at times? Yeah, I think that it's fair game. There's a lot of more high-profile GAA people are getting, making money and making financial gain by going charging, crazy amounts of money to deliver, to present medals and things like that. Fair enough, it's not in front of the public, but there's still, that's, to me, that's an awful lot worse than what Aiden O'Shea is doing. He just seems to be like, I don't know if I was trying to think of it. Has anybody ever got more targeted abuse than him in the GAA? It just seems to be a lightning rod forward. He just attracts it. I don't know, is it because maybe it's because it just the size of him on the pitch as well, and that people think he should be doing more or whatever, but it's totally unwarranted. Has he played in 7 All-Ireland finals all told? Fair enough, he hasn't scored in an All-Ireland final. There's an awful lot of people haven't scored in an All-Ireland final. There's an awful lot of people haven't played in 1 All-Ireland final, let no one even got close to that. So I suppose it's that I often refer back to that quote about that you'll take criticism, or you'll take feedback from someone who's gone inside the white lines or put themselves out there. They've left themselves open for criticism. I tend to disregard a lot of people's opinions when they've never put themselves out there. They've never put themselves on the line. The easiest thing to do is, I've often got abuse from different people about, oh, you played brutal in this match. And then it's like, yeah, how did you play? Sitting up in the stand there, going for 10 points after the match. That's generally what I would say, because, and boys would say, oh, you're fair sour or something like that. If you want to give abuse, you're going to have to be able to take it as well. But I admire anybody that puts the effort in that's needed to get out on the pitch. Did Aiden O'Shea go out on Saturday evening to play a bad game? Boy, Jays, he definitely didn't. I'd say no.
I don't even think he was that bad. Like,
yeah,
he wasn't that bad in
the
second half, but he set up 3 or 4 scoring chances, 1 freeze in the first half. I don't necessarily know if I'd want him closest to goal, because he doesn't really score quite often enough to do it. But he still got on ball and did what Aiden O'Shea does. He gets it, moves it on.
Yeah, no, it made it probably a bad decision for that Ronan McNamee block. He probably should have checked back. I think Conor Loftus was actually making a run to the right, and if he checked back, he might have been able to deliver on the ball. But there was a lot of bad decisions made the other day. It's not as if he was awful. He's probably a 6 out of 10, I'd say. He wasn't anything less than that for me anyway. I thought he was influential at times in the first half. Drew a few frees, but it was more a systematic thing with Mayo. There was a general panic kind of set in the second half. They were all making the wrong decisions. It wasn't him making the wrong decision. Like Tommy Conroy, as you said there, Tommy Conroy probably should have taken the ball further to take the shot, or he should have given the hand pass. But there was a lot of things like that happened. The wrong options were been taken all over the pitch, and for it to be focused on one player is just, it's totally uncalled for, and it's completely unwarranted, to be honest with you.
Yeah, who else are the players that get the abuse? We have a comment here saying that he's probably the most abused player in the last decade, says Flash. I'd say the likes of Austin Gleeson gets a fair bit of it. Look, we've definitely seen it in Tipperary over the years. Plenty of players have gotten absolutely slated and been put under the microscope. I'd love to hear who else people think gets that sort of abuse. And do you know what I think of the Theodore Roosevelt speech about the man in the arena? I might even just read a couple of lines of it, just because it's so true. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcomings. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end of the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. So that place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. And it's so true. It is absolutely true. And you know what? I haven't interviewed Aiden O'Shea for a couple of years now, but as I've said before, anytime I've interviewed him, he is not one of these lads who's trying to shut down every question with, we're just looking to get the victory in one game. He'll give you something. I mean, he'll talk a little bit more openly. He's a personable fella. So because of that, I like to see him do well. And you know what? I'm glad that he does talk to the media and does avail of the opportunities that are there. Sure, Joe Canning avails of opportunities too. Remember the Red Bull stuff straight after the Clare game in 2018. And more power to him doing it. Because I see so many players that they're not allowed to talk to the media, which costs them commercial opportunities. A lot of times they're like, well, what does a GAA player get? Well, maybe the commercial opportunities shouldn't be shut down by managers, or like if a player is interviewed 5 or 10 times over the space of a year or two, then all of a sudden you might have promotional work coming on board for him. And these managers are shutting them down, yet the manager is showing up to interviews all the time and building up their rep. They're not all managers, but I just think some of them, and it's unfair. Very, very, very unfair.
Can I just say that on that as well? Like, do you see like Aiden O'Shea in the media the whole time? Like, I don't. I know he did that stuff for Pair Mobile. In fairness, they're getting their mileage. They're definitely getting their mileage out because it's definitely been talked about. But outside of that, I'd say any other stuff he's done are probably duties as Mayo captain. I can't think of anything else this year, to be honest with you. I can't.
You're not an Instagram man, though, are you?
I'm not an Instagram man, to be fair. But that's the modern way that like it's probably not people my age or maybe a bit younger, but that's the way people communicate now. Like, you know, Mark Moran, who's on the Mayo panel, is putting out videos on TikTok and stuff. Like, that's what people do now. Is he supposed to not do that because he's playing for Mayo? Is it affecting him playing with Mayo? I don't think it's affecting him one iota.
No, and even James Moore name-checked him as someone who I think has had injuries and could be back next year. I think he has tens of thousands of followers on TikTok. And then like some of the Instagram lads, like Aiden O'Shea would have promotional work all the time on Instagram, but it's putting out stuff that, you know, it doesn't make a difference really. It's just like, here's my car promotion, here's some like clothing thing here. And like the likes of Lee Chin is doing it, Keane Lynch, I believe he's had some stuff, Austin Gleeson, whether it's like a link up with a protein company or whatever, they're all at it. But whatever it seems, and more power to them, by the way. And like even I've seen videos where David Clifford is featured in a video for something or other. He's not necessarily talking it or doing any interview, but like, you know, players have to be allowed to exploit those opportunities. And they can't just all be opening coffee shops, really, or bars like it used to be back in the day. I mean, they're and it's easy money. It's handy money for them, and they should be allowed to do it.
But just on what one of your viewers said, like, and something that I kind of half mentioned myself, I don't know if anybody has ever attracted more criticism. The only people I would say that have attracted more criticism would be within the GAA is on the back of something that they've done, be it like a high-profile incident or, you know, a punch-up or something like that. But for
McConnelly, maybe, you know, I mean, he's had lots of incidents on the field, and Patrick Hickey kind of mentioned him out here. Red Lad T says Canning would have got a lot of abuse before he won the All-Ireland. Ozzie Gleeson seems to be another who gets stick thrown. It's easy to rest on another man's wounds. Yeah, you know, I mean, Larry Corbett, he used to get some abuse. Declan Hannon from Limerick got torrents of abuse in the past decade, but came through to it for the better. Yeah,
that Declan Hannon would be good. But that would have been based on that one game he spoke about in the 2013 All-Ireland semi-final against Clare. Connolly would probably be the only one, I'd say, who would nearly be comparable. And that's obviously with some off-field kind of things kind of dragged into the equation there as well. But
Paul Galvin,
yeah, but that would have been more around the incident with the referee knocking the notebook out of his hand and getting the 6-month suspension brought down to 3, and even, you know, his altercations with Noel O'Leary down through the years as well. Like what has Aiden O'Shea done on the pitch to warrant this? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I can't think of anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Another comment in here. Sean O'Sullivan says there was a video of Aiden O'Shea going around where a girl in an office who fancied him was gifted a life-size cutout. Then he appeared from behind a door for the girl's birthday. Very nice gesture. So, I mean, I haven't seen that, but that sounds pretty sound if you did that. Davy Fitz is another one.
Yeah. You'd have to say Davy courts it to a certain extent, though.
Go on, tell me more.
No, well, he does. Like, I think he loves a bit of controversy too. Like, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, there's a comment in here. Ask Verney, what was the crack with the Bird Junior B sending off on TikTok? 14,000 likes on the video. Any background to it?
To be honest with you, I only saw this second hand, and it was about 2 days after the match. One of the fellas, I think he threw his helmet off or up in the air when he was after getting sent off the other night. But I don't think there was much to it. It was more the character that was involved. I'd say is a bit of a character.
Yeah, there's nothing really to be said in terms of like, what do you do about this abuse? It's just, it is going to continue. People are going to be who they want to be. And it's probably more a case if the likes of Twitter forces you to sort of prove who you are when you're setting up an account.
Can I ask you something now? Because I don't know much about Instagram. Is the abuse a lot less on Instagram? Like, if you put up a post, are you going to get abused on Instagram as much as you are on Twitter? If you know, like, you can't directly abuse someone on Instagram unless you put up a picture of slating them or something. Do you know what I mean? Whereas Twitter, you can just put up a post and say, Shane Stapleton is the worst hurler that ever played the game, or whatever.
Well, you can do that. You can tag someone in that you can tag in other accounts. I wouldn't say I notice it just as much because I spend far more time on Twitter than I do on Instagram. But maybe other people on here have comments on that, because some GAA players would have 50,000 followers, and maybe there's plenty of anonymous accounts on there too. It can be done. So there's probably loads of abuse going in on every single platform. So
can I just ask you, who in their right mind would tag Shane Stapleton or Michael Verney or Aiden O'Shea and to give them abuse about a bad performance, or or what they perceived as a bad performance? It's one thing to say it, then to tag the person, I just think it's madness, to be honest with you. I think it's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're going to go through a load of different things. There's so many topics as ever in the world of hurling and GAA, of course. We do want to do the top 10 hurlers. We were actually reflecting on it earlier. I was just double checking who we had as the top 10 hurlers the last time. We had number 1, Tony Kelly, 2, Lynch, TJ Reid, Kyle Hayes, Sean Finn 5, Dahi Burke 6, Austin Gleeson 7, Joe Canning 8, Grode Hegarty 9, and number 10 was Owen O'Donnell, the Dublin fullback. So we're going to update that list. We know that Joe Canning has retired for one. Anyway, he was playing for Portumna over the weekend.
Are we going to retire the number 6 spot? That's a real American football thing.
Yeah. So we'll come to that in a while. But do you know what? As we're on the topic of Galway, I was just kind of thinking a little bit more about that situation over the weekend, and along with Westmeath, and there's a couple of people in line for the Westmeath managerial job. Kevin O'Brien is one from Clonkill. Ryan O'Dwyer of Tipperary is another guy who's been spoken to. I think they're talking to one or two more, but we'll see in the next week or two who's going to be interviewed there. Now, this has all been done in the modern approach from most counties, where rather than going to clubs and asking them to nominate people, they just kind of go behind closed doors, call people up, text them up, have a meeting, decide behind closed doors who's going to be the manager. And, we've seen a lot of that over the closed season because there's been so many jobs that have changed hands in the last few months. But with Galway, they do maintain that situation whereby they ask the clubs, can you come forward with recommendations? Someone is proposed for the job. Then there's a management committee or an interview committee set up to talk to all these candidates, and then they come out with someone. And that's what happened with Shane O'Neill a couple of years ago, and happened Micheál Donoghue and everyone before that. So if Micheál Donoghue is going to become manager of Galway, again, just as an example, he will have to be proposed by a club. Then we'll see the interview committee. So it's going to be weeks. Like, it would take a process. It will be at least in October before Galway have a manager. But it's not like it can be just done behind closed doors, quick little phone call to Donoghue, look, are you interested? Okay, let's go. Now, obviously, they can do that and make sure that, for example, Clare Bridge do propose him. But it's not like this can be done quite easily, which means that it's an awkward public situation whereby everyone in the country will know Donoghue has been proposed and is therefore interested before anything happens. It's a bit of an archaic system, isn't it?
It's a very long-winded way of winding up with a manager. Like, the thing is now, and you would see it within a lot of club setups in the country, if you have a good executive and people that really know how to go about their business quite prudently, they will just kind of they will go to whoever they think should be the senior hurling manager or the senior football manager or the intermediate manager, whatever. They'll obviously seek opinions off other people as well. But if you have the right people in place, they're generally able to they know who to approach. They'll seek some counsel from people about who they should approach, and they'll go after X, Y, or Z, and they'll get them. Whereas this is a very, like, you could have I remember when Micheál Donoghue went for the job, I think Johnny Kelly was mentioned, Justin Campbell was mentioned, Jerry McInerney was mentioned. They were all actually in the pot at different stages. And it's a bit of it is a bit of an awkward one as well, from the point of view, like if Donoghue is interested, it's Donoghue's job, but they have to go through all the various red tape to get in that job. So, and that, there's potential sticking points during that process as well. Like, for an All-Ireland winning manager, if he wants the job again, it should be just a matter of, here you go, pick up from what you did before. But it's not like, there's a lot of hoops that you have to jump through now almost as well. It does seem a bit archaic, to be honest with you. It's probably the best word to describe it.
But is it fair, the flip side then, let's say somebody else has done a lot of really good work in the last couple of years, maybe with a club or whatever, and then you're like, it's just Donoghue's, he should get it. Should there not be a democratic process? rather than,
yeah.
Some counties it'll be jobs for the boys. I'm not saying with the Donoghue Galway situation, but maybe there should be democracy.
Yeah, it's an awkward one. It's kind of can be hard to be transparent in these situations because. Sorry, I just see this Adrian McGrath post who says, I love tagging Stapleton when Tipper in a heap. Does that count? No, Adrian.
Yeah, bullying Adrian.
That's beautiful, and we all love to see it. But yeah, I'm not sure. Sorry, Adrian's after interrupting my train of thought there.
Well, I was talking about the democratic process. Whether it should be democratic or just a little, behind closed doors phone call.
It's kind of a tricky one. Like if you want to get stuff done, sometimes behind closed doors and that phone call, that's how you get things done quickly, and you maybe get who the majority want. When you go through the democratic process, sometimes you might not sometimes democracy doesn't work, and we've seen that, and modern history will tell you that as well. And sometimes people will be put off by a process as well, and will be put off by having their name in the media that they're in the pipeline for this job and whatever, and different jigs and reels of it. So I don't know. I think if you trust the people involved, I'd be happy as long as you have the right people involved at board level, be it county level or club level. I'd be happy to trust them that they'll make the right decision. But on the flip side of that, we probably all have evidence of when maybe the wrong people have been in place in various clubs and counties, and maybe the best person for the job hasn't been approached, or not the best person for the job hasn't been approached in the right way, and they end up spurning the opportunity to get someone, whoever the best person is.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, we live in a democracy, and, the way Galway GAA has been run, that's got very democratic sort of traits. But then in the business world, it's capitalism. So there's one person at the top, or there's shareholders. So it's obviously like a pyramid up at the top. They're making all the decisions for everybody underneath. So it kind of works. You've got this world whereby maybe the capitalist model of somebody at the top who's the right decision maker. The way John Costello is the CEO, and obviously there's democracy within Dublin and GAA, but John Costello is the CEO, and it almost feels sometimes as if he makes the decisions from the top down for the betterment of Dublin GAA. And whether that's true or not, the whole point in making is it's a bit more of a capitalist model, unlike the democracy where, it starts from the bottom up. And I just wonder sometimes which is better in the GAA world. And this is exactly the point we're kind of making here. But because they're all these intercounty teams are multi-million euro industries, you need to have unbelievably qualified people at the top, and especially if you're going to do it in that sort of capitalist sort of way of just.
I'll put you this way, Shane. I would be more than happy within the Offaly County Board for them to go and approach who they feel are the best people. Currently, 3 or 4 years ago, I would have not had faith in Offaly County Board to go and attract the right people. And history would suggest that, generally, with the amount of moving and shaking we had with managers and different things that went on, that lack of trust was not repaid, but you know what I mean? The lack of trust I had in those personnel to make those decisions would have been correct. Whereas now, so a lot of it is to do with who you have at the helm and how much you trust the decisions that they make. Like a lot of the time with the really good leaders, like the decision is just made. They've already attracted the right person, and it's just signed, sealed, and delivered, and you don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, just a reminder, we are brought to you by OurGame. Use the promo code OurGame, you get 15% off. Please do subscribe to the channel on all the platforms, and if you're watching on YouTube, hit the button in the bottom right-hand corner to subscribe. Really helps the channel because it gets recommended to others. And also, if you want the audio podcast, a good way to support the channel is patreon.com/OurGame. A $5 a month really does help the channel kick on to the next level.
Just a quick one, Shane, right? So when Jim Gavin resigned, I'd love to know the ins and outs of Desi was in very quickly after. It was a matter of weeks by the time he was the new Dublin manager. I have a fair idea how I think. Like, I don't think they went and asked 10 or 15 different people. Like that's my own personal opinion. And to me, that's the right way to go about it. You're getting a new manager in situ. I think you're getting the best replacement in situ. Whereas you could be waiting, 6 weeks to 2 months to go through a rigorous process to get and you might end up with the best person in place if you go by the book. And sometimes going by the book is just not the right way to do things. You know as well as anybody that the best way to do things is just sometimes not the way you're supposed to do things. Sometimes you just have to get things done.
Yeah, but that all is contingent on the right person being at the top of the tree doing it for you. Any chance Liam Sheedy gets the Galway job, says Kieran A. Smith. Not in a month of Sundays, I'd imagine. I neither think Liam would want the Galway job as much and all as he'd respect the position and of Galway GAA and the fact that they're an excellent county. But I just couldn't see it happening in any direction.
No.
We'll leave it at that.
I don't see him. Like, he got involved in Antrim because it was so alien to Tip almost and so far away. But I don't see him get involved. Bar getting involved with a weaker county in coaching or advisory capacity. I wouldn't see him get involved in any team that will ever come in competition with Tip.
Yeah, we're just about to talk a bit of club now, but you know what? First off, I wanted to show a video talking to the Tyrone and the Mayo supporters from over the weekend. It was very enjoyable chatting to them, so this is just a couple of minutes of that.
My name is Oliver Brown. I'm the native of the Neil, County Mayo. I currently reside in Summit, New Jersey. So I thought it was important on a day like this that we remember the events of 20 years ago where 3,000 souls lost their life.
Did you get a ticket for the big game?
I got a ticket, yes. I can't tell you how I got it, but I got it, and I feel very lucky to be here today on All-Ireland Final Day. And I'm looking forward to a Mayo win, and Tommy Conroy is going to hit the net today.
Yeah, you think Mayo are going to do it?
I know we're going to do it.
What's your name?
Katie.
And who do you think's going to win, Katie?
Tyrone.
By how much?
1 point.
5 points.
5 points. And who's your favourite player?
Conor Ryder.
Lovely. Well, enjoy the game.
My name's Peter Brown. I'm from Kent, England, and I'm here because of my cousin Pat, who runs Molly's Pub in Ballyhale, the best place in town, and I bet we're going to win it.
And have you been a lifelong Mayo fan?
Absolutely, for 66 years.
Brilliant. And who's going to win?
Mayo!
Lovely, sir.
Noel Brown from the Neil as well. We're hoping a legacy my father started, where the Neil won their first. He was the manager of the first team from the Neil to win a county championship. And from that, Tommy Conroy has come out of the Neil. And we're hoping Tommy Conroy will do the biz today and Mayo will take it home.
I'm in the very not high.
And who's going to win today?
I think Tyrone's going to do it with 3 points.
Yeah, what makes you so sure?
I just think we have a stronger bench and better forwards,
Yeah.
Big and carry, a big psychological boost.
And what would it mean to Tyrone to win this?
It's massive. We've got 3, but we're definitely going for 4 today, so good for the county.
Yeah. Tough to get a ticket?
Madness, I've never seen nothing like it. This is the worst I've ever seen.
Mike Éire from Wexford.
And who's going to win today?
Oh, I think Mayo will win it by 5 or 6 points.
Did you have much trouble getting a ticket?
No, not any great trouble now. I found one fairly easy.
What do you think? What's your name and what's your club?
My name is Mary. How are you doing?
Good. And where are you from, Mary?
Couldn't get rid of her. You couldn't get rid of her. Tormacady is my club, actually. Tormacady.
And will Mayo win?
I'd like to think so, but the best team will win. But can I just say one thing?
Ooh.
Hello!
What would it mean if Mayo won this one?
Oh, to me, level thing.
Yeah.
They didn't win it since the year I was born, so to me, very important dog.
Name is Conor McMahon and I'm from Wexford.
Who's going to win the game?
I think Tyrone's going to just shade it by a point or 2.
And why do you say that?
I just think that Tyrone hold all the aces on the bench, so I think they'll come strong in the last 10 minutes.
Okay. What's your name and what's your club?
Dora.
And what's your club?
Who is it?
Yeah. And who's going to win today? Who's going to win?
Tyrone.
By how much?
10.
Good man. What would it mean if Mayo did it?
It will mean in a whole. I've never seen them win in All Ireland in my lifetime. So the last time they won it, my father went home in the steam engine to Ballinrobe.
Two and bring it up on their captain, Portugal.
Good. Sir, what are your names? And what are your clubs?
Johnny McNamee, Rowan's father.
Well, how proud are you after that? What's your son?
Brilliant game altogether.
Did you think they were going to do it?
Yeah, we're always going to do it.
And what was the difference on today?
We were getting better and better. All right, we're getting better from the last day.
And what was the final whistle like?
Great altogether, great.
Yeah.
But we'll be back fighting again.
You're Ronan McNamee's mother, are you?
Yes, I am.
How proud are you today?
I'm very impressed.
Yeah. What was it like? What was it like on the final whistle?
That was crazy.
Yeah.
I was sick.
And how do you think he played?
Okay.
Yeah, he had a good performance,
Not
didn't
too bad.
he? And you took him playing football since he was a child, did you? Oh, very good.
Yeah, very well.
I have to say, that was very, very enjoyable chatting to the supporters before and after. And pure fluke to run into the parents of Ronan McNamee.
So a rather special occasion in
Manchester. You could see
Manchester.
the mother was just absolutely bursting with pride, doesn't she?
Yeah, like you never know who you might run into after a match, but to perchance to meet them now is it's unbelievable. And sure, like they're, as you say, they're the people that brought them to training. They're the people that brought them to nurseries, had them kicking the ball at home. I can't imagine what it's like to be a mother and father, brother and sister watching someone. You've obviously watched Paddy playing All Ireland finals, which I'd imagine is some buzz. To be a mother or father.
It is
I'd say that. Yeah. It's we were chatting to Peter Canavan last week, and he just said like he cannot enjoy the games when Dara is involved, and I'd say there's some pressure involved for them. You'd much rather, you always say it, but you would much rather be playing. At least you can do something about the pressure, whereas when you're sitting up in the stands, you can't do anything about it. But fair play to them. Like that's only their fourth. They're fourth in their history, and they're fourth since 2003. Like so, fair play, and they're going to be around for many years to come, I'd say.
Yeah, Mary from Mayo might have had a few scoops on board. Fair play to her. Hopefully they dull the pain of the results. Do journalists have to pay for tickets? Asked Limerick Drive for 5. We surely don't. We're doing a public service by bringing out that stuff to you. You're a brave man to go out into the middle of them, lads. And a couple of other comments flying in. Keep the comments coming. As we always say, we don't know everything. We like to think we know a bit, but we certainly don't know everything. But what an occasion for the likes of the McNamees and plenty more around the country. We're going to talk about the Wexford Hurling Championship because huge news is Oulart are after getting relegated. They were beaten fairly handily by St. Martin's in a playoff there over the weekend.
Yeah, but a relegation final. How these two ended up in a relegation final is, a bit mad, really. Obviously, the Martins were knocked out on penalties against Ninaagh Éire Óg. They won by 13, obviously. You probably would have expected the Martins to win. For Oulart to go down is a big blow. You would have always probably predicted in the last 2 or 3 years that once that golden generation of say Rory, Jacob, Keith Rossiter and those guys, when they maybe started to finish up or come towards the end of their senior days, that they might struggle. But they were in the county semi-final last year without a lot of those guys and looked like they were developing a new team, but that can happen kind of quite quickly. Like I don't think they're not an intermediate side. They're definitely not an intermediate side. But it could find it hard to come back up. Sometimes that happens. You go back down a level, and you could there's obviously going to be a couple of good teams in intermediate, and they could easily get beaten next year. But it's I don't know. I don't think it's the fairest thing to happen. I don't know how. Like a couple of results go against you, and because of the nature of Wexford, where they're trying to get everything done up fairly quickly to start the football championship, there's probably less games this year, less chances to survive, I suppose, as well. But definitely very, very disappointing from them. From the Martins' point of view, just relief, I'd say. Imagine if Martins had been relegated, that'd be like it's not, wouldn't be alien to say that'd be like the Village or Ballyhale or someone getting relegated in Kilkenny. Like it would be unheard of. They won quite handy. Jack O'Connor hit a point. Hit a point falling off balance out around the middle of the pitch. It's an outrageous score. I think someone tagged you in it to do it in the copycats. But I'd say we'd only get hurt if we tried it. But we probably will try it, to be fair.
We might try it, and I'd say we'd be doing well to drop the ball into the 14.
14 would be a stretch. 21 would be the limit, I'd say, falling off like that.
We'd be doing it on our good side, so I wouldn't be doing it off the left. I'd be kind of trusting to wind up a little bit on the right. What do you think?
No. It's copycat. Exactly on the left.
Yeah, you're looking to embarrass me here again.
You're gonna have the little short hurl on the left like that, and you're going to be trying to hit 100 yards with a flick of the wrist.
There's no hope. I might as well say it right now. The back is under too much pressure over the years, and Flash is saying we need to see copycats back soon, lads. Come on. No, we will be doing it soon. Just so many games over the weekend or over the summer between both codes. I hadn't time to wag. Never mind do a few of those videos. But just back to Martins against Oulart, 126-16. It was some battle of managers there with John Myler on one side, and obviously he's involved in the Kerry Club Championship as well. Liam Dunn involved with Oulart. That has to really sting Oulart going down. I mean, they were Leinster champions only 6 years ago, and now they go down. Also, there was St. Mogs of Feathered. They're going down to intermediate ranks. They lost 116-115 to Crossabeg Ballymurn. There was a great little moment in that. I'm not sure if you saw this. I'm going to try and bring it up on screen as well. Niall Murphy with the Techers here. So I'm hoping people can see this okay. So watch as the ball comes over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, do you know?
That's nice.
What about copycats of that?
Yeah, I'd fancy that now. It would take a few goals, but I fancy it.
Well, your footballing background is going to stand to you there.
Should do, yeah. Should do. You played a bit of junior with Boris as well.
What do you mean? County minor champions in 2000?
Minor A.
Captain?
Minor A.
Huh? Look, all I know is Owen Kelly was playing for Mullinahone the same day, and there's no point in bringing up whether it's A or B. It's serious.
Oh, Jesus, that says a lot about your age profile.
Right, Rapparees are back into the county final. First time since 2001, they beat Glyn Barntown, and St. Anne's rocked Shelmaliers. So the Shells came in as county champions. They're after being dethroned. And St. Anne's, they were intermediate just 4 years ago, but you know they have some excellent players: D. O'Keefe, Lee Moog, McGovern. So I don't know, was it a massive shock? But they went down to 14 men early in the game, and it didn't faze them.
No, that's a fair old shock now. Like we would have, like if we to put our heads on the chopping block, we would have both said Shells would have been winning that game. St. Anne's, one of the goals was got by Jonathan Fogarty a couple of years ago. His brother Mikey plays with them as well. Mikey's a jockey as well. He hasn't, don't think he's ridden for the last 3 or 4 months because he broke his wrist at Punchestown, I think, in around May, I think. But a couple of years ago, the week of the county final, Mikey Fogarty rode a winner at Galway, trained by his brother Jonathan.
He rode a winner. You know, he rode us boggers. We don't say he rode a winner. He rode a one.
Oh, Jenny Mac. Okay.
That's the way us boggers talk.
But so the two of them actually combined to land a bit of a touch with a horse the week of the county final. And I was only thinking, imagine you were the St. Anne's manager, and you have this guy who's like his job during the week is, you know, to ride horses professionally in a race. Like there couldn't be, unless he's a stunt devil or something like that, there couldn't be a more dangerous occupation to have going into a county final. But he managed to get through it unscathed. And listen, this is as novel a pairing as you're going to get. You wouldn't have predicted. You would have been talking about the Martins. You would have been talking about Ninaagh Éire Óg. You would have been talking about Shelmaliers. They probably would have been the three. Glyn Barntown as well, obviously. So. You know, these would have definitely been outside the top 4 coming into the championship.
Limerick Drive for 5. Being relegated is some dose. All that can go wrong does go wrong. Reminds me of a film called Shot Caller, Worth a View. So looking at that,
it's just on that, Shane. When things do start going wrong,
it's hard.
It's snowball effect. And I've never played in a relegation final, and I don't ever want to play in a relegation final. To me, that's 10 times worse than a county final.
Yeah, if you end up in one, there's a fair chance that you could lose it because things have been going bad. And there could even be a bit of poison going around because everyone is starting to see who can blame who. I mean, that sometimes happens. I'm not saying with the likes of, you know, Oulart or St. Martin's or anything like that, but it can happen.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago, we'd maybe lost 1 or 2 games at Borough. And if we won our next 2, you know, we were grand, we were in a quarter final, there was no issue. But if we lost the next one, there was a chance you could be forced to win the last group game to avoid playing a relegation semi-final or final or whatever. And there was a couple of clowns around town who'd be saying it to you, oh, geez, they're actually trying to heap pressure on you, like, almost, which is just stupid, like. But I could only imagine what it would be like when you get to that final stage and, you know, your nerveless free taker, like that's not a free to win All-Ireland final. That's, to me, this is more pressure. A free to keep your side up or avoid relegation, that's worse.
Yeah, for a club getting relegated, oh my God, it's just the entire topic of conversation. Like if you're a club that historically has done well, oh, it must be a horrible situation to be in.
What's the winter like? What's the winter like? Lads potentially turning on each other, lads turning on a manager, lads turning on club committees, everything, everyone's players. Like, yeah, imagine the social media abuse or stuff like that. It doesn't happen on social media. It would just happen in pubs and back alleys throughout the town or village.
Yeah, so Rapparees, I mean, that's a big one for them, first county final since 2001. Declan Root, he's manager their apps, and he said we had to grind it out afterwards. Lenny Connolly got a goal, and Kevin Foley blasted a penalty. He scored a lovely point. He was wearing number 7, but I presume he was playing somewhere in the half-forward line there. Just the clips I saw, he seemed to be in an advanced part of the field. Just to look at St. Anne's, as I said, they went down to 14 men early and they lost, losing Massey Cullen to a red card after 9 minutes. Shells had Owen Doyle red card in injury time in the first half. Like you said, John Fogarty, he got the first goal. Conor Hearn responded for one with Sheldon Lears, and then sub Pádraig O'Keefe, he sealed it with another green flag. So that's going to be a good final. Rapparees against St. Anne's. Bit of a novel county final there. Actually, I'm just going to be curious there to see when did either of those teams last win the county final? And like we've definitely seen some breakthrough county title wins in the last few years, haven't we? There's, even last year I'm thinking, wasn't it Dungannon won a first county title in 64 years in Tyrone?
Yeah, Ninaagh Éire won one a couple of years ago, and Wexford hadn't won one in ages. Wasn't there a time in Wexford football where was there 10 different county champions over the course of a decade or something? I think something along those lines. But like it's amazing. Ninaagh Éire have been close, obviously beaten in the final since making that breakthrough. But like once you make the breakthrough, and if the Raps or if St. Anne's, whoever wins it, they'll obviously it's a massive weight off your shoulders. Particularly for the St. Anne's lads. Who remember, like when they got to the county final 2 years ago, they'd been beating the Guts at 30 points in a group stage match and ended up getting back to the county final. And said they were intermediate only 4 years ago to go up and win senior. I think like the Meath ladies have shown any team that it's possible to come up the grades and not be affected at all if you just embrace it really. And that's going to be an interesting final. I wouldn't know where to call it because I would have called it Glenbarntown Shells final if I was calling before the semi-finals.
Yeah, many would. Rapparees won it in 1978. St. Anne's, they won it in 1924 and 2000. So for both teams, there can't be many lads involved as players who played back in 2000. So you're looking 21 years ago, and not too many lads outside of ourselves are playing that long at adult level, huh?
Yeah, no, Darragh Ryan would have been playing in 2000, wouldn't he? For St. Anne's. There was a dig at our ages there. I started playing senior in 2005, so you might be a bit ahead of me, I'd say.
We'll move on to the Limerick Championship. Patrickswell, they were on TV against Ahan. They won it pretty handily. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see it yet or if people out there had a chance to see it, but Aaron Gillane scoring 2 goals in the space of about 60 seconds, both with his right-hand side, I might add, and knocked them in very comprehensively. Just his ability to just win ball out in front. One of the balls, there's the big 5-litre going down the hatch for Verney, but one of those balls was like probably a 90-yard ball, and he just found a way to manipulate the fullback, catch it as he was jumping, turned around and buried it into the net. The other one was more of a lower ball that bounced in front of him, turned, I think there was like a little bit of a break, and then he eventually just slammed it into the net. And Ahan were always up against it there. From what I saw, Tom Morrissey, he was playing centre forward. His brother Dan was playing around midfield. And this is a Patrickswell team that were out without Kevin O'Brien and Paddy Maher. They'd both been suspended. Thomas O'Brien got the final goal there. But a good response for the Well, considering they'd lost last weekend to do it.
Yeah, and we talked about the spine that they have, and like if they have Aaron Gillane in form, if they have Dermot Burns and Keane Lynch in form, they're always going to be there or thereabouts. They probably can't afford to be like someone like Kevin O'Brien would add an awful lot to them. When more attention has been focused on Aaron Gillane, it kind of allows like a lad like that maybe to get a bit more space to operate. So they'd be glad to have him and Paddy Maher back next week. But just important for them to get back on the horse.
Yeah, so just have a look at a couple of those goals there for anyone who didn't see them.
Can Stack reach to draw Aaron Gillane, more chicken cheat will Gillane, Lodgers Nair, can I take Aaron Gillane, Aiden O'Shea goal! Score check Aaron Gillane, well on the boon Chimmark, Lodgers Nair,
Lodgers Nair, August Commercialized Shin, and Intellect O'Keefe Lynch, and Leroy de Gert, the Hort, Darren Gillane, August Fishe in on. Éachricht nu gus naster fad anna cooler fad agus mar dúirt mé it is achan léthe béidir go méach a háin go háirithe it is achan léthe Dan Morrissey a chur rimmel na cearn agus chun smacht a chur Aaron Gillane.
Mar go beo by Basha Royer noch is by Clifford Boots a Gillane as hen a hen of those scores agus a hen of 3 cover Forrick so you chat reach Josh Considine Canalish Jack draw Gillane Tasha Forcher reach Gillane and Tom Tra Tashi again which I thought fi Khulele Tasha thought Tashi block culture Tashi for Gillane reach well and Dara cool attack Dara cool attack Neil shot them at Katze thought for those scores again.
Yeah, agus Tashi.
Yeah, I mean at that stage when Aaron Gillane does that to you twice in the space of 60 seconds, I was just thinking I think Conor Callahan, when we played St. Martin's a few years back, Willie Devereux was on him, and I think he scored 3 points in something like 60 seconds, or was it a goal and a couple of points, and it was just like a devastating 60 seconds or something like that. When a forward does that to you, it's tough. Like, you feel for Padraig Hartnett there. Great ball going in, so he's kind of thrown to the wolves a little bit.
It's funny, there's games that you could play in, and we particularly played in the inside line defence, where the ball like might not come in for the first 10 minutes. It might not. And then there's a game, I remember that day Milan famously gave me an awful going over. There was a ball into him with inside 5 seconds, and he had a pint on the board, and you haven't had a chance to settle in the game. Your tongue is out already, and then all of a sudden the ball just keeps coming in, and it keeps coming in, and it keeps coming in, and that was kind of the situation there. And you'd feel bad for their hand lads, because the game was nearly over before it started, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, some forwards, you know, they're starved of possession, but you're talking there about the ball keeps coming in. And with Kula, when we were flying it, there was a couple of times around, I don't know, 17 or 18 when I was playing in full forward, and the ball kept coming in. And after a while, I was like, I'm so tired running for ball here, because, you know, beautiful ball out in front. Obviously, I was doing nothing with it, but, you know, beautiful ball coming in. You're a bit like, oh God, I hope there's a break in play here. You were hoping for the water breaks back then. So
the way you were talking there, like, just the ball stopped going in. I was just thinking, I'm so gorgeous. They're going to have to put me under arrest.
Yeah, but there's got to be other people out there who know the feeling where you're a little bit like, you know, you're 34 or 5 at this stage, and the ball is coming in. You're like, for God's sake, I just need the ball. Like, will their forwards ever win a ball here? But like, this was that time when we were at the peak of our power. I see Flash saying Ballyhale are finished. We're going to talk about them a little bit later on. Andrew Sullivan is talking about your experience. Thurles 08, lest we forget.
Andrew's a good friend of mine, has never let me forget that, nor will he ever. I remember I think it was Andrew suggested to me that my fantasy team should all be called AC Milan, as in MULLANE rather than MILAN.
So a couple of more comments coming in here, as they ever do. A boy, Niall Moran, my class won in 1A1, mighty career, and skinned Sean O for 5 points. Would have loved to see you get the cross. Not fully sure what that's relating to. I must have missed something there.
Niall might have still been playing with a hand the other day, maybe. I presume that's what he was on about, yeah.
No, I was there with the woman. I was after making her watch the Camogie final, and she wouldn't let me watch all of Patrick's well. So I haven't seen all of that game there.
Give and take. There has to be a give and take.
Well, I was looking to watch some of the American football on day one as well, and having watched the Camogie and all this kind of stuff, I was kind of caught. I ended up having to watch. Did anyone see this? Right? It was called, what was it? Drawing Life or something like that. So it was like David James, Johnny Vegas, some girl that was in what was it, Pussycat Dolls, and some other person, I can't remember who it was, but they were on the show on BBC, and they had to do life, so there was a model posing and draw them, and they were doing all those famous sort of poses, that one where God is touching man, the 2 fingers coming together, done by Michelangelo, all that kind of stuff. Unbelievably relaxing. It was so relaxing. And David James was absolutely brilliant, to be fair.
Sounds absolutely awful.
It sounds awful. I don't know if anyone else saw it, but it was fair relaxing.
I'm going to need someone to back you up here, to be honest.
Yeah, well, someone get in here and back me up.
I'm not buying this at all.
Honest to God, jeez, I was purring like a kitten watching it. Now, at the same time, I wanted to see what was going on with Patrick Mahomes and all the boys, and see how the Titans were going to get on, and the Packers and all this kind of stuff. But unfortunately, I had to rely on watching highlights this morning. But I'm sure there's people out there. There's a bit of give and take with when you're going out with someone, that you can't just say, look, we're watching the soccer, then we're going to watch this, because Leeds Liverpool was on as well. We're going to watch the Camogie final. I was there trying to sell to her that, look, we're all about women here. I'm after letting you watch the Camogie final. Can I watch some NFL now? But it didn't quite work out that way. But anyway, speaking of the Camogie All-Ireland, I want to touch on a couple more of the Limerick games. Kilmallock, they beat Ballybrown. Funnily enough there, Michael Houlihan scored 16 points, 6 from play for Tony Considine's team there. They didn't have Graham Mulcahy. And you know what? After Ballybrown went in front after 10 seconds, it was the 57th minute before Kilmallock went ahead. So that has to be some sickener.
Yeah, like Ballybrown have been improving in recent years. Kilmallock were obviously beaten well by Napearshig in the first round. Like that's a scrape for them now. They're probably lucky. I'd say they're thanking their lucky stars that they got through that one. Graham Mulcahy looked to have gotten a knee injury in the All-Ireland final. And I don't know if he actually missed the first game, but he definitely was injured when he came back off that day after coming on. And just in a couple of the other games there, Blackrock beat Gary Spillane 119 to 116, and Kildimo Palace 20 points, Mulleen 15 points. So that was their first win since coming back up senior, I think.
First in over 70 years.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
Kyle Hayes, obviously, who we all know well. They face Adair next week, knowing that a win will see them into the quarterfinals. Obviously, that would have been a big surprise at the start of the year if to see them get through to the quarterfinals. Mulleen are into the relegation decider, and this was a tweet from the Kildimo Palace Club, back with a bang after a wait of 70 plus years. The club marks return for a team for the parish senior championship hurling by defeating Mulleen. 3 debutants, 8 different scores, a clean sheet. Not a bad night's work. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of putting it now. Not a bad night's work at all.
Yeah, they're up against Adair next weekend, trying to get back into the shake-up to win that county title. So not many people will be backing them. But with Kyle Hayes, I think he's playing centre-back for them. They'll always fancy their chances there, but a lot does rest on his shoulders.
It's not funny, like, there's no way he could do what he does for Limerick for his club, like, especially if he's playing centre-back. Like, I wonder, I'd love to see one of their games and see how much is he expected to do, because, like, there's no centre-back in the country does that at club level. You just couldn't do it. So it'd be interesting to see how he plays. But like I often said it to you before, a lad that plays, cornerback for his county and then goes out playing centre back for his club, you can't expect him to like hurl the whole field at centre back, because he's not doing that with his county. So just be interesting to see what sort of a role he plays with them and if he does get forward much.
Yeah, we've got a viewer in Perth. Great show, boys. Limerick man stuck in Perth. That's Gary F here. So keep the comments coming in. Declan O'Keefe, massive local derby next weekend between Adair and Kildimo. Never met each other in senior before. So that, like, can you imagine the buzz in those two parishes over the next few days? That's going to be class.
Yeah, and obviously if Kyle Hayes could be nearly marking Declan Hannon, I'd say, because he's playing up in the half-hour line for Adair. So like Adair are a good senior time side in Kildare or in Limerick, but they're not, Na Piarsaigh, Kilmallock, Patrick's Well. So, it would be a very far stretch to say Kildimo would be able to beat one of those top 3, but they'll quietly fancy their chances against Adair, I'd say.
A reminder, we are brought to you by OurGameRetro.com. I should say, use the promo code OurGame to get 15% off. Whether you want to get this jersey for Tyrone to celebrate their All-Ireland or any of the other jerseys out there, go and check them out and use that promo code. A reminder, please do subscribe to the channel. It does help the channel grow. The more the people follow on YouTube, the more it recommends it to other people who are interested in GAA. And I think basically half of the people who watch the show from week to week don't actually subscribe. So that would really help the channel kick on. Want to try and get up to 10,000 and kick on from there. There's over 8,500 people subscribing on YouTube at the moment, and we do want to kick on. So please do subscribe there. And if you want to get the audio podcast, go to patreon.com/OurGame, $5 a month. Was there any big things happening over the weekend in the club championship that happened? I saw one man cut over 4 sidelines. We'll talk about that stuff a little bit later on. But we do want to talk about the Camogie All-Ireland, because you were in at it. And I thought, obviously I've mentioned that I watched it already. I thought it was a really good game, but Galway got it done again.
Yeah, best Camogie final I can remember in a long, long time, to be honest with you. Quality-wise, thought the striking was brilliant on both sides. Long, direct, crisp striking. Real kind of slick passing between the two of them as well. Real physical game.
The midfield battle?
I was just going to mention, like, the midfield battle was, iconic. You had Hannah Looney and Aisling Thompson coming up against Niamh Kilkenny and Aoife Donoghue. And Colin Murray said after that, he basically moved Aoife Donoghue out there. She had to play out midfield because they felt like they needed to really go at the two Cork girls toe-to-toe. And I'd say in the early stages of the first half, Hannah Looney got points, I think back-to-back points in the 11th and 12th minute. And Aisling Thompson was everywhere, I'd say, in the first half. But Galway slowly got on top in that sector. I think Niamh Kilkenny hit the first point of the second half. She's up to the last 2 points. Aoife Donoghue was just everywhere. She got a great score just before half time. Galway probably edged that battle in the wind-up, and it was probably what tipped the balance. They were the better side throughout, But then Cork got in a bit of a flurry. Just the water break, they were down by a point, 11-10. Orla Cronin, who will go into her ordeal, I suppose, to play the match in a couple of minutes. She got a point in the start of the fourth quarter, and then Katrina Mackey got a goal. And you're thinking, like, this is Cork's. They're coming here now. The momentum is kind of with them. And then Galway outscored them 1-4 to a point, and they had leaders standing up everywhere. The likes of Sarah Dervin just put up the block in the second that last 10 or 12 minutes. There was just no getting through. And in fairness to them, up top, the two McGraths and Aiden O'Reilly, who was my player of the match, I thought she was brilliant. In particular, Carrie Dolan played. Carrie Dolan hadn't played in about two or 3 months because she was carrying a knee injury. She started. She hit the freeze really well, and remember, she got a really good catch from a puck out there at one stage. But she went off after scoring her 6th free, and they got a free 30 seconds later underneath the Hogan stand. And Ailish O'Reilly put it over, having not hit a free all day. And I thought that was a huge kind of that was a real kind of statement from her. Then Siobhan McGrath gets the goal a couple of minutes later with Ailish O'Reilly putting on the pass for her. And then Orla McGrath, who hadn't been in it that much and had been kept kind of quiet enough, put over 2 points to finish out the game. But it was just a real thrilling finale. No, it was the best Camogie final I can remember in a long time, because a lot of the time we'd been given out on the Monday after about, the amount of frees and, we need more physical contact. And you mentioned earlier, like, Liz Dempsey let the game go, and no one on either side, there was no call that you would really get too excited about. It was just, just a real good end-to-end kind of game, and the best advertisement for Camogie I've seen in a long, long time. Yeah, one of the umpires, I'm fairly sure, gave a point. Was it Orla Cronin who hit it? And I thought that ball is wide. And then they showed the replay, and it looked to me that it had definitely gone wide. So I thought there was going to be a bit of controversy there. Did you think it was going to be Cork's day when, I thought they were the more physical team. And, Aoife Donoghue, I think, was down for treatment about 4 times in the game. She got battered in there and still played brilliantly. But when Katrina Mackey found the roof of the net, did you think finally, now that Cork have actually gotten ahead after all their good play, that they're going to see it out? No, I did, to be honest with you. It's actually, it was a replica of their semi-final against Kilkenny. Cork were the better team up until Kilkenny got the goal. And then you're thinking, Kilkenny are going to kick on. And no, Cork were the ones that kicked on. Galway were the better team up until Cork got the goal, and you're thinking Galway are under pressure here. And then all of a sudden, they just had, leaders standing up everywhere. It's go down through the player ratings, and like, the vast majority of the Galway players got a minimum of 7. They were just, and to be honest with you, a lot of the Cork girls got 7 as well, because it was just a real high quality content. Like, here's one for like Shauna Healy and Amy O'Connor. Like, they just went toe to toe with each other, and I thought that was brilliant. Shauna Healy did some good things, got in some great flicks and blocks, and Amy O'Connor did some good things as well. But a lot of the duels, they were nearly cancelling each other out. Just a really a good advertisement for the game. And fairness, that's 2 in 3 years for Galway. They've only got 4 in their history. 2 of them are in the last 3 years under Cottle Murray. And in fairness, he's fairly turned around the ship fairly emphatically from where they were, 3 or 4 years ago, changing manager mid-season. Yeah, I did feel they should have brought Amy, either deliver better ball into Amy O'Connor and let her turn and go at the Galway defence, or bring her further out the field, maybe to right half forward. I thought in the first half they were kind of struggling out there. They didn't do it, and I think they kind of lost the game because Galway played beautiful ball into the McGraths inside, and early on in the game, Cork were all at sea back there. Did they go 5-0 up, or was it 5-1 or something like that? 4-0, yeah, 4-0, and then it was 5-1, yeah. Yeah, and I think that was one of the big things over the course of the game, that Cork didn't get their scores handy enough because they weren't playing in nice ball. They weren't always kind of using the right option, and it kind of caught up with them. To be fair, though, it was that finish from Galway outscoring them 1-4 to a point at the end. But definitely not an ideal lead-in for Orla Cronin with the suspension thing hanging over, and probably only finding out after midnight. You spoke to the management afterwards. Yeah, well, it was obviously that game was played 2 weeks ago yesterday, so they knew about the suspension fairly quickly in the days after the game. I don't think they got the referee's report until late in the week, which would be unusual to say the least. And they obviously sought a hearing. That was on the Tuesday. That didn't go their way, and I don't know why the appeals hearing wasn't until Friday night, but it wasn't until Friday night. That didn't go their way. Then they went to the DRA. And around midnight on Saturday night, they found out that she was free to play. Paddy Murray said a couple of interesting things after, as he usually does. He said he was in bed when they got the result of the hearing, which I find hard to believe, because the availability of one of your best players, I'd say you'd wait up to find out. He also said that Orla Cronin didn't train with them while she was suspended. So that means that she didn't train in the 2 weeks leading up to the All-Ireland final. So you can deduce what you like from that. He wasn't very complimentary of the disciplinary process, and he said that they always knew that they were going to have to go to the DRA, and he said they always felt that when they got a face-to-face hearing that they would have a very good chance of getting off. But for it to go that long, it's just ridiculous. There's a lot of things at play here. The amount of semi-final in particular red cards that are rescinded going into finals, like, referees must feel totally undermined. They have to. On the flip side of the Peter Casey one, at least Limerick knew what, at least 9 days before the match that he was available. Cork didn't know. Then there was, Linda Collins, who's the captain, was named to start. She led them out for the parade, and then she didn't start. Thought she could have been in earlier too. I thought she probably should have started, if I'm honest. She set up the goal and was very energetic and got into some good positions. But it's far from an ideal build-up. And you have to say it would take a bit of your eye off the ball, you'd imagine.
Yeah, it would have to do. So I think that's something that needs to be sorted out by the GAA. I'm not saying it's an easy one to sort out, but definitely they need to find a better way with that.
But the only thing is, it can't be sorted by the GAA because they're not under the one umbrella at the moment. The LGFA and the Camogie Association.
Sorry, the Camogie.
Yeah, but like that's by all accounts, some of the rules within the Camogie Association are sketchy enough. So
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean the GAA.
No,
sorry,
right,
but this sort of stuff does need to be sorted. Hello World says Clock Ballyhale starting the 2021 championship very strong with 2 high-scoring wins just off the back of winning the delayed 2020 championship a few weeks ago. Hard bet against them this year. We'll move on to the Kilkenny County Championship here, because Ballyhale are after losing 2 games in a row. We've been here before where in the group stages they've lost a few games and they still come out and either, I don't know, win the county championship or win the All-Ireland as they did a couple of years ago. So will they be all that bothered? 2 defeats in a row, Bennett's Bridge, and now James Stephens?
I'd say they'd be a bit more worried. And partly because of the age profile of, some of their elder statesmen, is, they're a bit older maybe and had done a lot in recent years, particularly probably TJ Reid and Colin Fennelly. They were both kept very quiet the other day, as was Adrian Mullen. Dermot Cody, Brian's son, Brian of Kilkenny manager, not the other Brian Cody. He was very, very good on Colin Fennelly, I believe. He's been injury ravaged in recent years, and I believe he picked up a small injury at the end of the game and could miss another couple of weeks. So having just got back into it and been playing very well, looks like he's going to be out again. Me and you watched even some clips of it there. It was very loose. It didn't look like a group game. Yeah. It didn't look like it. Like, definitely, like, there was a couple of times lads were striking the ball standing up, which you just would not associate with a championship game of any kind anywhere. For the village, Keane Kenny was very good. Luke Scanlon very good. Both got a couple of points each. Owen Gilfoyle was good in the freeze for the village, and Niall Brazel is at centre back. Remember last year
that really stood out. Like, Scanlon midfield, Niall Brazel centre back, and you'd think both of them might play as inside forwards, but obviously they rejig things, and I think Conor Brown isn't available at the moment either.
Yeah, he's still out as well. It's mad to see, like, the village have changed an awful lot in recent years. There's no Larkin, no Jackie. There's probably not nearly as many household names. They're still a very, very good side, and they're definitely in the top 2 or 3. And will be there or thereabouts again. But that's a good win for them. They obviously came very close to beating the Shamrocks last year in the semi-final and probably should have beaten them. So they're going well. Seamus Dwyer's over them. That's Chaz's brother from where are they? Not Ballyhale. The other club beginning with B in Laois, which I can't think it begins with B, but I can't think of it at the moment. Chad Dwyer's club in Laois, anyway. That's where Seamus is from. He's been involved with them the last couple of years. I think he was involved with Cheddar when he was there last. Ballyhale, that's the one. Yeah, Ballyhale. Yeah. So interesting to see Niall Brazel at centre back. But a lot of the time now, she have lads driving forward from different places. Good man, hello world. It's great to have people to finish their sentences, in fairness. But that was one of many interesting results. But I think like you asked about, we asked about whether the Shamrocks are, you know, finished or not, or whether they should be worried. The age profile of TJ and Colin Fennelly would probably be somewhat of a worry with regards to trying to bounce back. And this is just as regards players in general. I'd like to know what your thoughts are. There's a point when I'd say you're probably 30, 31, 32, when you're not maybe training as much. You have all the experience under your belt, all the know-how, all the cuteness. Your body is still at a really, really high level. You're still recovering fairly well from games and trends, things like that. You still do a reasonably good volume and you're fresh. And then all of a sudden, 33, 34, and you're very close to being over the top almost. And the same juice isn't in the legs. You recover a lot slower. You're able to do less training. You're just not moving as quickly as you were before. Like, is that something that you would have noticed? I'm just thinking of even some players that I've seen. There is a massive difference between, I'd say, probably the ages of maybe 31, 32 compared to 33 and 34. You do slow down an awful lot.
Yeah, well, even if you just look at the injury profile, there's something you just brought up there. Like, Seamus Callan won Hurler of the Year in 2019 at the age of 30. And that was probably exactly what you were talking about there. He's got that perfect situation where his body is still absolutely flying it. He's injury-free that season. The year before, he definitely wasn't. His back was a big problem. He's got all the experience in the world. He'd been nominated for Hurler of the Year 3 times at that point. Goes on and wins it. So he had everything. He had all the athleticism was there, but all the experience, and he could just marry it together and ends up scoring a goal in every single game. TJ Reid, you know, the last couple of years, even going up as far as 33, 34, he's still got that perfect blend of the two. Even though the pace isn't quite the same as it was before, he's just got so many strings to his bow. But even Joe Canning, I suppose he was about 29, 30 when he was Hurler of the Year / moving on to 2018 form, where he was absolutely brilliant again. So I do think there's a fair point in that. Even you wonder, like, for some players, does the hunger kind of abate when they reach that age? Some lads that have been there 10, 11, 12 years, maybe they're getting married, maybe there's other things going on with the career, because things have to get serious at some point with the career.
Kids as well, Shane, is a big one, I'd say too, you know.
Sure, look at the amount of energy that requires. So I think there's a lot of things that come in there. So then once you reach 32, 33, if some of those realities of life are starting to hit home, it's going to take a toll. I mean, during the summer there, I mean, when would you, like, you need to stretch when you're over 30 and you need to do it every single day. But it just, like, days would pass by and you're like, I'm too busy today, and it slips your mind or you just don't get around to it. So I think that's definitely a fair point there. So just for Ballyhale, can they still kind of recover now that some of their players are in 31, 32? Quality-wise, you'd say they'll still win that county title. But it isn't just down to that. There's a few other factors in there.
There is. I think crucially for them, at least, they have like Paddy Mullen, Darren Mullen, Adrian Mullen, who are all energetic. And at the moment, I believe injury-free. They have Owen Cody, who's after coming off a brilliant season with Kilkenny. They have Dara Corcoran, Richie Reid. Like, you know, the keepers of a young age as well. Like, they have got a lot of young fellas. Brian Cody's of a young age as well. They still have plenty of other fellas, but at the end of the day, the lads that were winning them most games, like against the Village last year, it was TJ and Colin Fennelly combining for a goal when they really needed it. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can get back to that form. With Colin Fennelly as well, it's going to be interesting. He said he was only taking a year out with Kilkenny. Is that going to be another year out and retirement? That's going to be interesting to see over the next while as well.
Yeah, and just looking at some of the results over the weekend, Mullinavatt 119, O'Loughlin Gales 213. Dixborough, they drew with Clara 21 points to 215. So Colin Bonner, who's coach with Dixborough and has taken over as Tipperary manager heading into the new season, he was definitely being spotted at Tipperary club matches over the weekend. But do you know what? I wonder for him, no doubt he's committed to the Dixborough cause. There's no doubt about that at all. And Pádraig Fanning is manager there. But I'd say his head is scrambled over the last few days, because he's like, I need to see every player in Tipperary all of a sudden. You know, he knows them already, but he's probably mad to see a bit of both. He's probably up watching games being streamed all night, but then also trying to juggle that with Dixborough duties.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm sure he would, like, his first and foremost, his thought this year would have been to know every player in Dixborough and know every player in the Kilkenny Championship and what they do. And I'm sure he knows a fair whack of them. But now all of a sudden, you're thinking about some even obscure matches in Tipperary that you need to see if there's somebody there that could be of interest, someone maybe that hasn't been looked. So it said Conor Heaney says that Bonner left Borough. I'm not 100% sure that I'll have to check that out. But I won't comment too much more on that. But it would be very interesting to try and juggle the two of them, definitely, especially when the Kilkenny Championship's going to be on for at least another 2 months.
Yeah, without doubt there. So some of the other results then that have happened in Kilkenny. Greg Ballycallan 215, Erin's Own 215. And I believe now, I was told reliably from a Kilkenny man who was watching this stream that at one stage during the game that the commentator said a swarm of bees was after attacking. So I mean, if that happened to you and I right now, that's fair. That'd be fairly uncomfortable stuff.
Yeah, I have my window closed, thankfully. There was a fly going around there a minute ago. I thought it was going to be like Dalo on the Sunday game and I'm going to have to start flicking or something like that. But I think he's resting somewhere for the moment.
And let's see what else. Tullerone 215 to 18 points win over Roar Inishtig, and Bennett's Bridge 221 to 315 against Lisdowney. Lisdowney had a penalty saved by Enda Clear with the last puck of the game, so just about getting through. And Mulnavat beat O'Loughlin's, which I think I already mentioned.
Yeah, I think the Bridge and the Village are the only two that have won their 2 games.
Do you see Colin Fennelly going back for Kilkenny next year?
Not at the moment, no, I don't.
Because Brian Cody will still be manager.
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily, but I don't know what exactly would have changed within the year. Like it was a very strange one. Like, just going to pull up his age here now. Like it was a strange time to be taking a year out. Say if you look at someone like Stephen O'Keefe taking a year out with Waterford, it's kind of different for a goalkeeper. He's 30 and could still conceivably play another 3 or 4 years at county level. For a forward, Colin Fennelly is 30, just gone 32, so he'll be coming back in. He'll be 33 next year. Maybe
he relies on power and pace, and look, everyone knows Father Time waits for no man. Eventually that is going to slow down a little bit. Like, he's some bullock turning around going at you, but I don't know, can you do that forever, and how much can the body take of doing that?
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I'd always kind of say to young fellas now that you need to marry the skills and the athleticism, because when your athleticism goes, you want to make sure you still have the skills. Imagine if I'm not saying Colin Fennelly is or anything like that, but if your hurling is just based on get the ball and run and you don't have skills, just say you pull a hamstring and you use the yard of pace, like, are you redundant now? Do you know what I mean? So you do need to make sure athleticism is great and it is becoming speed is becoming a skill, but like, when you get to your mid-30s and you want to still have an impact in whatever grade you're playing. But I always say this, if you can hit frees well and hit line balls well, you can stay hurling until your mid-40s, because you're always going to be needed.
It's absolutely true. I'll have to get working on the freeze. Bazzaroni says, I can't see Fennelly coming back into the inter-county setup next year. Other people may look at that a little bit differently, but it would be interesting to see, or it will be interesting to see, assuming that Brian Cody gets ratified. I still think it'll take wild horses to drag him out of that job. I don't see him going anywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be, I'm probably the same. I probably thought maybe he should have left, but there's nothing to suggest at the moment that he's going to go. Andrew Sullivan makes a good point there. Like, Owen Kelly is still, and you'll talk about him now in a minute, he's still lighting it up with Mullinahone. He still has it. He still has it in the wrist. You cannot take it away. They say the hips don't lie, the wrists don't lie with Owen Kelly.
Yeah, he's gotten over that minor county final in 2000 anyway. We know that. Flash says Fennelly was captain last year and got dropped for an All-Ireland semi-final. He's never coming back. Well, it'll be interesting to see that. But now that we have brought up Owen Kelly, Mullinahone had a 121 to 217 win over Holy Cross Ballyhale. He got a winner at the death. Deep into injury time, lifted it up over the shoulder. Owen Kelly, no bother at all. Still some hurler after all these years. They were in the same group as Tumivara and Clonoulty. Both Mullinahone and Holy Cross needed the win because the two losers meet in those groups and the two winners meet. Toom saw off Clonoulty 117 to 116, and Jack Ryan missed an injury time free to draw the game for Clonoulty Rossmore, so that one's definitely going to sting a little bit there. Turles Sarsfields beat Éire Óg Anacarty out the gate 230 to 113, and Upper Church had a win over Drummond Inch 314 to 117. Paddy Green scored 2-8 for the Church. Both of the goals came from play. Now, it would have been mentioned at the top of the show that I wouldn't talk about Borrisolee and how they lost to Killarwan over the weekend. 224 to 221. It was a game that was slowed up for 15 minutes on Friday night to 7:45 because the generators were failing and the backup generator. So luckily the electrician was nearby and they got the game going. But Seamus Hennessy scored 1-4 for Killarwan. And, you know, because of the knee injuries he's had, he's obviously not moving around quite as much as he'd love to do. I mean, everyone remembers him from 2010 when he came on, scored a point in the All-Ireland. And he just looked like this is going to be a class player for Tip for years to come. But, like, he's just had so many injuries. But 1-4, he just doesn't really miss. I mean, you do well to find a better pair of wrists.
Yeah, no, we've played Killarwan in club games. We played them last year actually, and he's very clever with knowing what he can and can't do as well. I found that, but if he gets the ball in hand and he's any sort of space at all, particularly off that left side, he'll absolutely kill you. Killarwan, I said it to you in the preview show, kind of coming into this weekend. They just seem to have found a bit more this year. They just seem to have found a bit more. I know they were beaten by Boris in the north, but there seems to be...
No, they beat Boris in the north.
They lost to Kildangan, yeah. There just seems to be I don't want to be disingenuous. There seems to be a bit more about them, particularly at the finish.
You never want to be disingenuous, of course. One of your biggest phrases.
Probably not. No. Well, they're only across the road here now as well, so don't want to fall out any more Tip people. But they could have been questioned in recent years when the game was in that kind of clutch situation that they haven't finished out games and that maybe that lads haven't stepped up. But they kind of stepped up again the other night, and that's another big result for them, in fairness. And sounded like an absolute belter of a game. Yeah, it sounded like there was some. Just saw some of the highlights and there was some great scores.
There was, yeah. I mean, Borrisley butchered a couple of goal chances at the start of the game, and it was kind of, you know, when you're watching Mayo and you're like, you need to take one of these goal chances here, or you're going to give the other team plenty of oxygen. And because Borris missed those early goal chances, then Killarwan started to take over, got that bit of confidence, went 11 points to 3 ahead. James Avani, he netted a rebound into the net after 25 minutes. Then Willie Cleary replied with a goal straight away, and Jerry Kelly, he scored a goal in the half-hour mark. But 114 to 2-5 at half-time for Killarwan. I mean, even though you're not that far behind because it's 17 points to 11, there's something about 2-5. You know, it looks fair. You know, you can get a fair sense that there's one team taking their scores with 15 versus the other with 7. Like Burris's cause wasn't helped by Dan McCormick, who was playing centre-back. He had to go off with... I don't know if it was a bash in a leg or a concussion or something like that, but he took a big old hit and he had to go off before halftime, which is a huge blow. Tommy Ryan Foot, he got sent off along with Keane Darcy. So both teams played with 14 men for just over a half. And it was Hennessy's goal that kind of kicked Killarwan ahead. They were 217 to 216 ahead. But Boris just missed chance after chance. I mean, I was screaming at the stream when Kevin Maher knocked 2 balls in the space of 60 seconds wide, because feed the ball into Conor Kenny. He was going to town. And there was more, and a bit like Thomas Cleary at the other end, there was scores to be had there. And I'll tell you what, there's a young lad for Borrisley, Eddie Ryan. He's not long out of minor, and by God, he's able to throw balls over the bar. He's a lovely, stylish striker, a really good free taker. So that's another lad that Borrisley have coming through, you know, to go along with JD, who probably obviously needs to do an awful lot more than he did on Friday night. Kevin Maher, there are those players coming through. But
just a quick one for you, Shane.
Yeah.
You're like, so the red card to Tom Ryan Foot, he's gone the next day.
He'll be, well, unless he somehow gets the card rescinded. But like it's a must-win game against Ninaagh Éire Óg the next day out.
And Dan McCormick's going to be a doubt, or at least he's going to miss probably a bit of training with either whatever he went off for. So like that makes that game even more interesting now. Like you know.
But do you know what? I mean, Ninaagh lost the first day out to Killarwan. So as I said, the winners of the first 2 games play each other just to keep it interesting all the way to the end. It's a really good way to do it. But Ninaagh beat Rossgrey. Borrisley hammered Rossgrey, but Ninaagh won 222 to 26 points. So it was only 2 points in it for a finish, goals from Philip Hickey and Tommy Heffernan. So from that point of view, you'd be like, are Ninaagh not flying? Or did they come into this game assuming, sure, look, we'll beat them anyway? And then it just didn't pan out that way and they made hard work of it. But that's a really juicy final game now, because Borrisley versus Ninaagh Éire Óg, a must-win game. And yeah, like you said, Borrisley have a suspension. Maybe there'll be an injury issue. But I think, like, for Ninaagh, they haven't won a county title since 1995. It's just hard to get your head around that, isn't it?
Yeah, we've played them regularly in challenge games, and like there's so much energy, so much pace, so much talent. But their seasons have turned. Like they got back to a semi-final last year, didn't they? I think. Having looked
They beat SARS and then flopped.
Having looked stink at earlier stages in the group stages. So no, but they did and they'll relish that game. I think that's going to be a belter of a game. And the winner, if Ninaagh win that game, all of a sudden flying into knockout stages full of optimism yet again. Their seasons have turned at various stages. Form has been poor, and then they seem to be able to turn it on when it really matters. But a big gun is going to fall. That's all. That's one thing we do know anyway.
Yeah, I mean, some groups are stronger than others. That's pretty close to a group of that there, with 4 teams from the north all in there. Just jumping on to the other group that we haven't talked about, which is Group 2. Sorry, we have talked about Group 2. Yeah, we have to jump up to Group 3. So Lockmore beat McCarthy Burris, and McCarthy Burris, they were ahead at half time. Points from Evan Sweeney, though, Brian McGrath, John McGrath, Noel McGrath, Kieran McGrath, along with a great goal from John McGrath, eventually turned things around. Kevin Cummins and Kyle Shelley, they got the goals from McCarthy. Max Hackett was in there playing well also. So 126 to 217. Good victory there for Lockmore after losing the first day out to Kildangan. Now, Brackens had beaten McCarthy Burris. So Kildangan against Brackens, most people would think county champions against a team that only came up from the Seamus O'Reen a couple of years ago. But they drew in the group stages, these two teams, last year. So there was probably never a question of this being a walkover. And I watched the game on the stream, and it was good victory for Kildangan for a finish. And this is the thing, even if anyone who saw the North final against Killarwanna also, they've always find a way to see out these games. So did very well here. They looked to be in a decent old spot when Dan O'Mara scored a goal after 19 minutes. They were up by 112 to 11 points at half-time. You'd think they'd see it out. But they lost Sean Hayes, the flying wing forward, to a red card after 45 minutes, but just about managed to stay in front. And Brackens were really, really good here, managed by Eamon Corcoran, the Templemore side. And the big feature that stood out for me was Shane Doyle getting 4 points from sideline cuts. I mean, Michael Verney, any man who gets 4 points from sideline cuts, as Shane Doyle did. And he also got a goal late on in the game, and you thought, geez, Brackens, they might actually turn this around. But Kildangan just find a way to see these games out. They're very good under pressure. But 4 sideline cuts from Shane Doyle. You give away a sideline against Brackens now, and you might as well be giving away a point.
As I said, Shane Doyle will be playing until he's in his 40s if he's able to stroke over lion balls.
You have to take the freeze off Lyndon Fairbrother, though, because I don't think Lyndon, he strokes him over from 100 metres, no problem.
That's true, yeah. It's fair going. Like I can't remember seeing that at club level, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like
Canning's score last year is probably about the height of it, isn't it?
Yeah, it was definitely. I think it was the most ever scored in an inter-county championship game. But I beg someone to defy us to say that more than 4, or when has 4 ever been scored at club level before? I can't remember if it has been. So it's a fair feat. I'm just wondering, Shane, is there anything you've seen or much feedback from anybody? Is there anybody that has stood out yet, or staked a claim for now? Is whatever about recent years, Liam Sheedy has generally had, outside from Alan Tynan maybe and a couple of other lads that he's introduced. This is an open book now this year for Colin Bonner coming in. Is there anybody that looks like they've stepped up or staked a bit of a claim to be introduced or involved in the panel?
I suppose at the top of my head, I wasn't really thinking about that question, but I know Sean Ryan scored 4-4 for Templederry was the week before last. So any forward at any level, it's in the Seamus O'Reen level in Tipperary. But any man who's scoring that amount, you can't really ignore that. It's probably too young or too soon for players like Eddie Ryan. He's obviously very young, so I wouldn't really be talking about him just yet. Top of my head, I'm not entirely sure, but I do see that that Mark Corcoran is saying that Dan O'Mara deserves a go, and that Shane Doyle is a very good footballer. Obviously, Brackens are a bit of a jewel club there, so that's definitely, and that's a factor in how they play also. And
you'll do what you do in Tipperary, so he mightn't be ready for the senior hurling panel yet. So he'll go kick football for 2 years, get 2 years of top quality S&C, play club hurling, and then he'll come back into the tip squad. Like
Conor Bowe, who played for the footballers this year. And you know what?
Yeah,
he's a player to me who seemed an obvious guy to step straight up into the senior panel with Tipperary from the under-20s the year before. So, I mean, exactly what you're saying there, that could happen. Yeah. And David Power then sickened as the Tip football manager.
But I've chatted lads involved with Tip footballers before. They actually don't have any issue with it because they know that most lads, if the hurling comes calling, that they will choose the hurling. But they've gotten a very good hop from lads maybe not getting on with the hurlers, or dropping back and playing football again. Stephen O'Brien and several others, so they don't seem to have any great issue with it. But if I was to say one player that I think could make a mark under Bonner that hasn't, I don't think he's played championship yet. He played maybe a tiny bit of league, would be Craig Morgan from Kilruane. Big fan of his, pacey wing back, really good on the ball, good man marker if he needs to go in cornerback as well. Someone who I thought probably would have seen more game time under Sheedy in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and he was good at the weekend, but I want to see a little bit more from him. I watched him in maybe one or two of the other games earlier on in this season. I didn't see the Ninaagh game, but against Kildangan, I thought, he's going to stand out an awful lot more here as one of the county panellists. So I'm like you. I mean, as you said, winning under 20 All-Ireland captain there a couple of years ago, you would expect him to step up. Probably didn't get enough chances. Didn't really look all that comfortable in the Waterford League game last couple of months ago. But then again, Tipperary were getting absolutely ran all over in that second half. So it wasn't an ideal spot to come in. Same with Owen Connolly, who came in that game. But he definitely is someone that Tipperary will be hoping will step up in the next year or so. So get your comments in. Is there anyone in any panel who you think is really standing out over the last few weeks and will stand out over the next few weeks and sort of push their chances to be involved with the senior teams next year?
I think that's what you want to see in club action, isn't it? It's like, will he get a run with the county? That's basically like, do you think he'll get called in, or is he doing? That's a lot of what the club action is. Aside from wanting to win a county title with your club, it's an opportunity to get called into a county squad and stake a bit of a claim. Make a name for yourself. Yeah,
a bit like Craig Morgan. I was thinking Keane Darcy, maybe he'd light up this club championship, but in the couple of games I've seen, he's been relatively quiet. And the Kildangan game, I barely saw him on the ball at all, and then obviously getting the red card. Don't know who instigated that situation or whatever, but probably needs to do an awful lot more. I remember seeing him in that league game, that one against Galway last year, where he did a beautiful stick pass from play over the top, and can't remember who scored the goal, but it was just a beautiful bit of play. And I thought, he might step up. He's got the yellow helmet, he's a left-hander, all that sort of stuff that Tipperary people like to see. Another comment in here: if Cian Lynch went into soccer instead of hurling, would he be playing at a high level? Because we're talking about him being a great hurler, but he was, I think it was St. Mungert's he was playing with, and might have got trials for one of the teams, maybe St. Kevin's in Dublin. He's got such class, you wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I listen. I've never seen him play soccer. If he was playing to a very, a real good level at, club soccer level or whatever it was, potentially, I'd say he's one of the, I'd say if he wanted to kick football as well, he probably would be very talented at that too. A lot of these top guys, you could have imagined Joe Canning being very proficient with a rugby ball, and I believe he was. And a lot of these guys would be able to switch codes, no bother, if that was what they focused their attention on from 13 or 14 onwards. So I wouldn't see why not.
Yeah, a couple of games in Galway over the weekend. Well, there were lots of games, but just we'll quickly touch on that. Ballindereen bet Portumna. This is in the B, 415 to 119. Niall Cohen, he hit a hat trick in the first half alone. They won by, I think they led by 10 points, and excellent from Ballindereen. They're, people will know them for Joe McDonough and Noel Lane, but they last reached the county final in 1978. Obviously, Portumna were hammered in a lot of the games last year in the group stages before eventually getting relegated. And Joe Canning limped off early in the second half. He had a bandage around, but it looked the upper leg, so maybe it was a hamstring or a thigh injury, something like that. So another blow for them. Again, we were talking about getting relegated and sort of the stuff you'd hear around the club. It's probably tough for them there. I know the way it's set up, though, with the Senior B, you can get back in and win a county title. But that's hard going, and conceding 4 goals, and, obviously they're not going to be too happy with that.
No, definitely not. I just saw one of the videos the Buff had up. I think it was the 3rd goal Ballindereen got. And it just kind of seemed to ransack Portumna, particularly early on. And obviously, anytime you lose Joe at any stage in the game, you're going to struggle. But Portumna would have expected to win their first game and try to get on a bit of a roll and get back into the the senior championship. But they're kind of chasing their tail a small bit now. I imagine they're going to have to win their next game to have a chance of getting through. So it's going to be interesting to see what plays out there. I was chatting David Connors from the Tuam Herald last night in Croke Park. Nothing, I think, major in Galway nothing too major in Galway over the weekend. It's like a lot of championships kind of only starting to get flowing. I think Wexford are quite smart actually with how early they play their championship, because it gets all the coverage almost, because it's at an advanced stage when a lot of other championships aren't. But a lot of championships are only kind of really getting moving now.
Lads, any average hurler would be good enough for rugby after 6 months training. It says PWell74, Patrick Swellman. And it's not exactly the highest skill set in the world, but you're like, half the players on a rugby field can't even do anything with the ball. They're just going in there playing destruction derby, bumping into lads. Huh? Am I right?
Well, yeah, like a lot of it. We were only chatting to a couple of the boys the other day about this, about what you eat the day of a match. And he was saying when he was in with Offaly, they were given a big roast about 4 or 5 hours before the match, because one of the lads involved, and you're going to say, oh yeah, typical Offaly big arses or whatever, eating roast the day of a match.
You have a voluptuous one, to be fair to you now.
They were loading up on a load of carbs and stuff like this, and one of the lads said, like, is this what we should be eating? And he asked one of the lads in the backroom team or whatever, and he said that, chatting like, this is what the Munster rugby boys would be eating, this is what they'd be eating the day of a match. And like, it's totally different if you're like, a hooker or a prop, and you're the farthest you're going to have to run is about 10 yards and it's into another fella. Whereas like playing GAA is so dynamic, like they are completely different games. I enjoy rugby from the point of view that no matter what shape or size you are, there's a position for you. So in fairness, it's all inclusive.
Yeah, I don't know if you're 5 foot nothing and about 6 stone. I don't think it's necessarily inclusive for you.
Well,
there.
you'd still say you'd be a dainty little scrum half or something like that, even if you would get killed. Like,
do you know? I heard a good one there not so long ago, and people tell us about your dietary stories. But I'm not going to name names here, but a few people know who I'm talking about. So there's this lad. He was a young lad now, 22 or 23. He's well able to run about, decent hurler, but he'd be spilling out over the side of the togs a small bit. He's carrying a small bit of timber. And
okay.
Huh? Yeah. He's a small bit portly. So before one of these matches, I'm pretty sure it was a club championship match with the second team. And he was going out onto the field, and he says to one of the lads that would normally be playing, only he was injured, and he says to him, geez, I'm a small bit hungry. Would you mind going into my gear bag? I have an old power bar in there. And you know yourself, like, lads often do this. I remember I used to get the Nutrigrain and the Lucasade Sport down the hatch before soccer games, so I was playing them for Bursley, and you'd have an old hangover. But anyway, this lad, he wasn't hungover, but he wanted to get that extra bit of fuel going into the game. And so the other lad who would normally play, he went in and he was searching around the gear bags, and he found your man's bag. And he was rifling through it, and he couldn't find it. He was, looking for a fulfill bar or something like that. Couldn't find it. And eventually he stumbled across a toffee crisp. And he was like, sure, this couldn't be it. And he kind of brought it out anyway. And he said to your man, look, I couldn't find it at all. All I could find was this. And your man said, oh yeah, that was it. And he just threw it down the hatch, went out hurling the match. Then a power bar, huh? An old energy bar, just to get him going before a match.
I thought he was going to find a slice of pizza or something in his bag.
There are lads out there who've done worse. You remember back in the day, it probably doesn't happen as much now. Well, maybe it's more like third or the fourth teams where lads would be substituted. I remember my cousin, I think this was for maybe the third team, but he was being substituted. This was maybe 15 years ago. And as he was walking off the field after being substituted, he started calling for one of his friends. And he said, give us a cigarette there. So he wasn't off the field before a cigarette was being handed to him, and he was just puffing away there on the sideline as he'd just been substituted.
Hard beat, it's hard beat. Like, that's why I love, like, junior hurling or junior football, because you still see all of that now. You're not going to see it at senior level anymore. Like, I'd be disgusted if anybody had a cigarette anywhere near, any of us in the senior panel or anything like that.
Yeah, okay. So over the weekend in Waterford, Ballysaggart had their first ever win at the senior county level after a couple of heartbreaking defeats in recent times. So they beat Lismore 122-120. First time in their 136-year history. And Stephen Bennett, the All-Star, he scored 1-9. So fair play to him. That's a huge one, isn't it?
Massive one. Still means they're in a relegation playoff, and they're after getting the short side of a relegation playoff semi-final. They're playing De La Salle on one side, which is a fairly star-studded semi-final, and Ballyduff Upper against Clonee in the other one. And the quarter-final draw is Dungarvan beat Mount Sion last night. I think it was it last night? Yeah, 127-24 points. They are playing Abbeyside, Ballygunner against 4 Mile Water. So Jamie Barnes, 4 Mile Water against Ballygunner. Passage against Mount Sion. Passage beat Mount Sion in that epic county semi-final last year, so it's a repeat of that. And Lismore against Roe Moore. So like Lismore and fancy their chances, I'd say, getting through to a semi-final. They were in the semi-finals last year as well. I think they were beaten by Ballygunner. So, you know, we've always talked about Morris trying to make a statement to get back in. He'll get a couple of chances to make another statement. I'm not sure, no matter what he does, if he's going to get back in, being honest. But he'll definitely do his damnedest to. And like Lismore are no longer. They're far from a one-trick pony. They've obviously got Jack Prendergast in there as well. And I heard following Tomas McCarthy's tweets the other night that he was absolutely everywhere over the weekend in their win. So yeah, interesting quarterfinals ahead there.
Yeah, Sean O'Sullivan said, lad used to play for Swords Rugby, used to have jelly in his jocks and be offering them to people when there was a kick or a break in play. Your man that did it got the nickname Jellies. I wonder why. Christ almighty, that is absolutely grim. Keep those stories coming in. We do enjoy them. In Cork, there's obviously lots of games going on in Cork at the moment. Douglas, they had a statement win over Glen Rovers, 24 points to 110. And I think Douglas fall in that bracket of teams that we've been wondering for a long time, how come they haven't kicked on and won that county title, given some of the playing personnel that they have. You would have thought, you know, with the likes of the Cadigans and Shane Kingston and so on. But it does mean that both of last year's county finalists, both the Glen and Blackrock, they've tasted defeat in the opening weekend, and they now both need to win to kick on. So Kingston scored 10 points, including 8 frees. I wouldn't have thought of him as a free taker, but there you go. Diarmuid O'Mahony scored 3. For the Glen, Patrick Horgan, he scored a couple from play and 6 from place balls. Dean Brosnan got the goal. Also, a couple of other results there. Sarsfield's beaten the Piershig 228 to 212. And then St. Finbarrs, they beat Charleville with plenty to spare, 422 to 215. Led by the Cahalan brothers, Connor, Jack and Damien. Obviously, their sister Maeve was playing for the Camogie team. And managed by Ronan Curran. So we might see one of the old Cork legends build a bit of a profile there in Cork hurling, mightn't we?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's interesting what you said about Shane Kingston. I definitely wouldn't have associated him with taking frees as well. And there's a couple of players, even like, I was thinking who would be taking the frees. Like, I wouldn't associate Alan Cadigan with taking frees as well.
Brian Turnbull, he doesn't look a free taker.
Like, I remember, like, there's a lot of really good forwards. John Milan would probably be one of the best cases. Really good forwards that just were not natural free takers. Milan hated taking frees, ended up taking them for De La Salle at one stage and just didn't enjoy it at all and felt that it took away from his normal game. But it's funny that someone could be so proficient in front of the post with ball in hand, but not nearly as comfortable, you know, hitting a free. I just find that's why, you know, say my own club mate, Owen Cahill, he's just so natural hitting frees. Owen Kelly hitting frees. Henry or JJ, or not JJ, TJ or Joe Canning or whatever, they're so natural hitting frees. And they're so natural with the ball in hand. Then you've got guys that are natural with the ball in their hand and just not natural free takers, which I just find it interesting. I wouldn't like Shane Kingston's style for hitting frees. I don't know. Pádraig Matney would probably be the best free taker I know that has that kind of style, that left hand on top style coming across into his right. Dermot Burns would probably be another one, yeah, but not mad about it. I like the traditional style. And I like traditional in general.
Are you the same then with like lads who hold the hurley with the right hand using their left hand side, like Aaron Gillane and Shane Dowling? Is it just the lefty thing that it looks odd to you?
Yeah. I don't like it. I just whatever reason it is, I just don't like it. I remember someone telling me years ago, never trust the left side of free taker.
Ned Flanders wouldn't be happy with you. The left. What was that shop that Ned Flanders?
The Leftorium.
Yeah, Leftorium. A couple of other things to touch on. I think it's worth talking about the top 10 hurlers at this point, because the last time out,
big time,
we did go Tony Kelly number 1, we went Cian Lynch number 2, TJ Reid, Kyle Hayes, Sean Finn, Dahi Burke, Austin Gleeson, Joe Canning, Grode Hegarty and Owen O'Donnell. So what way are we going to do that list here? Are we thinking Tony Kelly stays in at number 1, even though Limerick were the ones who went on and won the All-Ireland?
Well, Cian Lynch is now a 2-time hurler of the year, isn't he?
Cian Lynch is number 1 for me.
He's now a 2-time hurler of the year who delivered yet another outstanding display in a final. He's 6 points from playing the final, was man of the match in the final. Tony didn't do anything to go down unless somebody did a lot to go up. and Keane Lynch did enough to go up, I would say.
So we're going to go. I'm fully in agreement there. I think it was just a case of just running through it. So I think Keane Lynch number 1. Yeah, we're both happy with that. Are we happy with Tony Kelly number 2, or has anyone else done enough? By the way, I think Conor Whelan has to force his way in here somewhere. And because Joe Canning is no longer playing at inter-county level, I think he has to slip out of this list.
It's funny, like I don't disagree with you, but what's the basis for bringing him in?
Conor Whelan.
Yeah, but what's the basis for bringing him in now when we haven't seen Galway play since we last did the top 10?
Because it was probably an oversight all along that we didn't have him in there. He's been more effective for Galway the last couple of years than probably anybody, Canning included. So when has he played bad for Galway?
No, I don't disagree with you.
Does he lead the attack?
He always leads the attack, and this year he played well when everybody else was playing poorly.
Yeah, and you of all people who insisted that when we did the All-Stars of the year that, look, if we leave Tony Kelly out in the second last one, we can't have him in then, and then you eventually insisted on him coming back in even though he hadn't played again after the quarterfinals. So for me, Conor Whelan is going in here.
Things change, man.
You change, man. Okay, well, we'll come to him in a little while. Are you happy to keep Tony Kelly number 2?
Who has... TJ Reid was treated last time. He's definitely not done anything to work his way up the ladder. Have any of the other Limerick players or none of the Cork players have done anything to put themselves up any higher? Has anybody, like, from based on the final or probably the semi-final as well?
Well,
has anybody
is from
stepped
earlier
up?
in the championship. Like we did this early in the championship, so a lot of the championship can be counted in here. That I'd say most lads have played a few games here, so it's not just since the final.
So who are we looking at? Like, who are we looking at for Hurler of the Year contenders this year? Probably looking at Keane Lynch, obviously, who's going to get it.
Yeah.
Probably Kyle Hayes, maybe.
He'll be in the conversation. Yeah. Will Seamus Flanagan be in the conversation? Like, he scored a point in the final, but before that, people were talking about him for it. I'm not saying he's in this list per se, but people were talking about Grode Hegarty scoring 2-2 in an All-Ireland. You know, people are going to be looking at that. Got a few scores.
Does Tom Morrissey need to come into the conversation as well?
He probably does. He scored 3. Did he score 3 points in the All-Ireland final?
Yeah, 5 in the semi-final, man of the match.
Scored something like 5 or 6 against Tipperary in the Munster final. Was brilliant in the All-Ireland last year. Was my hurler of the year last year.
And mine, yeah.
So, did you not go with Hegarty last year, no?
No, I was a big Tom Morrissey fan. Tom Morrissey lost himself the hurler of the year last year by being too generous.
yeah, needs to stop passing that ball. So, well, first of all, I think TJ Reid is probably going to slip a little bit down this list.
Yeah, I think so, to be honest with you. Definitely, like, you'd have to say that he's going to find it hard to reach the peaks that he reached over the last couple of years. And we talked about the age profile, so yeah,
nearly 34.
Like, find it hard to see him scaling those heights again. I'm just not sure body wise if you can do that, and he's an awful lot done in the last while with very little time off. So he probably drops down, but it's a matter of who comes up, you know. I'd say Tony Kelly's like, yeah, it's an interesting one, to be honest with you.
Get the comments in. Get the comments in.
How many Limerick lads are we going to be looking at in the top 10? Like, you're probably going to be looking at 4 or 5 realistically, are you?
It's going to be hard to avoid that, because the same with the All-Stars. Like, people were slating us before when we were saying, well, you can't have every Limerick guy in every position here, but then you're like punishing them and leaving them out just because, you know, like, just because the team is so good, you're just giving credit to certain lads and saying it's because of Keane Lynch or whatever, and then you're looking at how maybe Barry Nash played or how Burns played, and you're like, well, you have to recognise them too. It's a hard one to decide, but like, is Aaron Gillane has he moved up the pecking order here? He scored 1-3 from playing the All-Ireland final.
Yeah, he obviously got the goal against Waterford in the semi-final as well, although he was quiet that day, and Conor Prunty probably got the better of him. Yeah, I'm kind of finding it hard to see where to start here, to be honest with you. We probably need to look at, like, there's a Cork player coming into the equation.
Well, I don't, like, Patrick Horgan is the same thing again. He's 33, so, you know, if you're looking at Reid and did he take over that All-Ireland final, he did score 2 points from play in the first half, and the ball going into him was fairly cat. So you can't really blame him for that. But it's not. He certainly didn't take over the game in any way, shape, or form. And would other lads have come out centre forward and found another way to get themselves into the game? So I'm talking about versatility there, because you probably wouldn't necessarily look to put him out there. So I'm not necessarily criticising him for it, because some lads, they're suited to that. Other lads play inside, and that's going to be the way no matter what. So other than that, with Cork, and I go through the team here, like, you're not going to go with the goalkeepers, not any of the full back line. I don't think Mark Coleman had big enough final for us to be talking about him. Tim O'Mahony, great potential. Darragh Fitzgibbon, no, I don't think so at the moment. Luke Meade, no. Conor Cahalane, like Seamus Harnedy, I know we put him in our all-star team under duress as far as you're concerned for this year. But again, 4 points in an All-Ireland final, very good against Limerick the first day out until he went off injured. His age profile, I think he's 31 now. So of the forwards, which also includes Conor Cahalane, a de facto midfielder, Robbie O'Flynn, Jack O'Connor, Shane Kingston. On potential, Jack O'Connor is probably the most likely there.
Yeah, I don't see him making the top 10 though, particularly after the All-Ireland final. He should get an All-Star this year. Well, I think he will, even though we left him out. But I don't know if there's a Cork man in this top 10 realistically. And I'm just trying to cut it down. Like Clare, outside of Tony Kelly, who else do we think we're looking at? Anyone else in the top 10 from Clare?
I see Cathal Malone mentioned there, but he had a really good season. But I don't see him as one of the top 10 hurlers in this list.
We rate him unbelievably highly.
Yeah,
I don't see him in the top 10. Being honest now.
Yeah.
So like that means we're looking at one player from Clare, Kelly.
Yeah, and we have him in at number 2 at the moment.
Yeah. Just say Waterford. Who are we looking at from Waterford? We had Gleeson in at 7 the last time.
And are you going to move Stephen Bennett in here? Caleb Lyons?
Don't think he did enough. I don't think either did enough to warrant being parachuted in, did they?
Yeah.
Was Jamie Byrne harshly left out?
I think so. Like I rate him so highly, and I know that he didn't have a massive game against Limerick until he went in full forward. But is that because Waterford were getting overrun everywhere, and their own ability to pass the ball to each other, sometimes simple hand passes, broke down in that game? They were kind of their own worst enemy to some degree in that game. I think he's in this conversation. The way he came back against Galway, like his first game in months, and he came in and took over the game and scored 4 points from play. Not too many lads are going to do that.
If we're picking a midfield partnership for the best team in the country right now, would he be in it?
If we were picking a team for the best players, not the best season, I'd say it's
the best team in the country. If you could pick the best 15 in the country that you were going to war with in the morning, Barron would be midfield, wouldn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think then we'll have him in the conversation in a minute. So tip players. Flash had no tip players, he said.
Yeah,
make a compelling argument to the contrary.
Well, first off, guys, your criteria for searching top 10 appears to be based on scoring forwards. Have we no defenders in contention? That's Joe Butler. I think we do, because in the previous one we had Kyle Hayes, Sean Finn, Dahi Burke, and Owen O'Donnell. So 4 out of the 6, I think that's a decent representation. Tipperary, God Almighty, this is tough. I'm going to want you wouldn't hear of Seamus Callanan in the last one, and because of the injury profile, and you can see he wasn't right, I don't think we can have him in at the moment. If he got 100% right next year, then maybe so. But at the moment, I tend to agree with you on that one. What about Jason Ford? He scored 3 from play. 3 from play against Waterford in the quarterfinal where Tipperary got knocked out. 6 or 7 from play against Limerick the first day out. Who else has done that against Limerick, by the way?
Tony Kelly.
Yeah, fair enough. He did that.
That's about it. That's about it, though.
That's about it. Otherwise, I look through the Tipperary team, and I'll just go with the one that started against Waterford. Hogan in goal, Barrett, Paddy Maher, Heffernan, Cadell, Brendan Maher, who's retired, Ronan Maher, Alan Flynn, Dan McCormick, Breen Ford, Noel McGrath, Callanan, John O'Dwyer, Jake Morris. It's going to be tough to make an argument at the moment for anybody. I think Barrett is still operating at a high level. Heffernan can get up there, but he was taken off that day against Waterford, so it's hard to make that case. Ronan Maher not too far off it. Yeah, unfortunately, I think the only one that I could really push for at the moment is Jason Ford. And within games, sometimes he takes over, and then the second half against Limerick wasn't really seen. So just at the moment, I think it's going to be hard to get a tip name in there.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with you, to be honest with you. There's a lot of lads operating.
Would you give Ford? Would you give Ford any hop here?
I give him a bit of hop, but it's probably, as you say, it's the consistency actually within games. He can take over a game for a spell, but probably doesn't dominate games overall. Like, he took over the game in the first half against Limerick, and listen, it wasn't just him. There was a lot of guys in trouble in the second half. But I probably see him just outside that top 10 there at the moment. Like, I'm just trying to cut down this as much as possible before we get to Limerick. Like, that's 4 Munster counties we've looked at there. If we look at Kilkenny outside of TJ Reid, are we looking at anyone else in this top 10?
Probably only Pádraig Walsh, and I don't know if we're necessarily, it wasn't exactly a standout season. Like, he's always good, like, but I don't think it's a season where you're saying he's not going to be in the All-Star picture, I would imagine.
No, I don't think so. Owen Murphy would be the other one I'd mention, but I don't know if a goalkeeper is going to make it into the top 10. Are we happy enough just to talk about TJ Reid and Kilkenny? That's all.
Unless people come in with a suggestion with somebody else, and obviously you have to back it up too.
Yeah, for the top 10, I can't see it. Who did we give any Kilkenny player All-Stars this year? Just Owen Murphy. So he would be the only one then that could come into the equation, and that All-Star was like, it's 50-50 nearly with him and Nicky Quaid at the moment.
Well, does Nicky Quaid come into the conversation here?
He might have to. He might have to. There might be a lot. Like, the thing about Limerick is, I think we're going to end up with a lot of Limerick players in this, and I don't have an issue with that. I normally would, and we might see it as overreaction, but they've lost. They've lost an All-Ireland semi-final in the last 4 years, really. The only really meaningful game that they've lost. They've won 3 All-Irelands. Like, they have been the dominant force. They've won, 16 points in this year's All-Ireland final, 11 last year. Like, they are totally dominating. So maybe we weren't giving them their due, particularly when we did the first top 10. I think we were an awful lot fairer in the second top 10. And I think we could be swimming in green by the end of this top 10.
Yeah. Is Caleb Lyons in this conversation?
I don't think so, Shane. Like, he was in the conversation, all right, but he hasn't done enough to come into the top 10, I don't think. Not in my view, anyway. On potential, he's load of potential and could get into it in time, but not at the moment. Like, if we just start, like, I'll just get back to Limerick. Let's get back, yeah. So, like, just get back to Limerick for a second. I just want to talk with the pecking order here. We go down through their team quickly. Like, does Nicky Quaid have to be on the short list?
Nicky Quaid? Is that what you said? I think so. I think he's probably not far off it. Yeah, he has to be. Like, he's just so influential and such a key part of what they're doing. Because, like, other teams, you're thinking, geez, if only they could sort out their puck out plan. I mean, whether it's down to him, Kinnerk, or a few other people in between, they have that sorted, and he's a brilliant part of it.
Yeah, okay. We're both. Sean and Finn hasn't done anything to. He might fall down or go up, but he's definitely going to be in the top 10. Yeah. With due respect, I don't think Dan Morrissey is going to be in the top 10, albeit he's a brilliant fullback. Barry Nash is as flew-in cornerback. He's been brilliant, but I don't think he's going to come into the top 10. Dermot Burns, I don't think will come into the top 10, will he?
No, but he's excellent. But yeah, I don't think quite in this one.
I'd probably say the same about Declan Hannon as well. As good of a quarterback as he is, I don't think he's going to come into it. So, like, is that fair to say? I think Kyle Hayes would be Kyle Hayes and Sean Finn would be the two defenders that would come into the reckoning. I'd have Will O'Donoghue in the conversation, funnily enough, and I probably didn't go hard enough for him at an earlier stage. But the longer, as years go by, to me, the more important he gets to Limerick. He just, to me, he makes them tick. I have to say, he just makes them tick. He's almost like a modern day version of Michael Fennelly, maybe without getting forward as much for those big kind of scores, maybe that Fennelly would have got, maybe the couple of goals that he got. But I'd probably be pushing to have him in the conversation here. He should be, to me, he's going to be an all-star this year. Should have been an all-star last year. And I think he's definitely one player I think that they couldn't do without.
Yeah, John O'Sullivan says from Limerick, Finn Hayes, Lynch, Hegarty, Tom Morrissey, and probably Gillane. Are you having Gillane?
Probably not. Probably not.
Do you think if Patrick Horgan, Seamus Callan, and TJ Reid, name one or two other forwards, were getting the same level of ball, that they would do more or less with it than he does?
They do as much, I think.
Yeah.
I think they do as much. He gets great ball in fairness. He gets lovely ball in. Like if you're playing the Limerick full forward line, it's an absolute dream. It is an absolute dream.
Your biggest worry would be too much ball coming in.
It's like what we said earlier. Just hit to the other corner for 5 minutes. Give me a chance.
Would Conor Whelan do more with that ball? I think so. And like I'm still saying, Gillane is class, but I just feel like it would be goal city if Conor Whelan was in there.
I'm going to put it this way, Shane. We had Dahi Burke in there the last day, and I think he's fallen down the pecking order a good bit.
I think Whelan should always have been in our list. I think that was an oversight on my behalf. By the way, Conor Heaney says, what ball does Gillane waste? And it's a good question. I mean, he does sometimes not score goal chances. I think he's 6 championship goals, maybe 7 championship goals ever. But he is a really, really good player.
I have no problem. Conor Whelan does need to come into the conversation. We're flying through. We have a fair short list now. Just on the dubs, you and me both think Donald Burke is very, very good talent.
Yeah.
I don't think he's in the top 10 in the country, though.
No. But very, very good.
And if we're being on, like, with the way Owen O'Donnell's season worked out, I don't think he can be in the top 10 either.
Well, because of injury, I suppose. That ruined his year. But, like, is that a bit unfair then? I mean, that's outside his control. And when we did see him on the field, he was excellent. Jeez, he had a great performance against Galway.
I know what you're saying, but that was a borderline call, and that was based after the Galway game, after they knocked Galway out of the Leinster Championship, and he didn't play another minute of Championship thereafter.
Yeah, so a bit of recency bias is what you're saying.
Well, no, it's just that there's other guys have passed him out within that time, I would say.
Mark Corcoran says, no Gillane, same standard as Stephen Bennett. Jason Ford is better than both of those guys. If Ford was up front for Limerick, it would be goals. I actually think that's true. I think Ford would go to town if he got that amount of ball in space. When he's playing with Tipperary, the one time he got space against the top team was Limerick in the first half. Not many forwards would have scored as much as he did against Limerick.
Okay, yeah, fair. No, they wouldn't have had. They wouldn't have had. Talking about like risks and stuff earlier, there's not many players would have been able to do what he did in that first half against Limerick. I think Aaron Gillane's a brilliant forward, but there's probably 5 other Limerick players I'd have ahead of him, if I'm honest.
Okay. So at the moment, we're Cian Lynch 1, Tony Kelly 2. Who are you thinking 3? I'd have Sean Finn ahead of probably any other Limerick player there.
Really?
Yeah. Well, who would you have ahead of him?
Kyle Hayes wouldn't be trotting too far behind him.
No, but I'd nearly have Tom Morrissey ahead of Kyle Hayes, and this isn't an insult to Hayes, but I just have Tom Morrissey because he always keeps the scoreboard ticking. His work rate's unbelievable. He's unselfish. I just think he's such a crucial part of it. Let's
do the pecking order of the Limerick players really quickly. So Cian Lynch is going to be at the top, okay?
Yeah.
Who I'm as a cornerback, I'm more than happy with Sean Finn to be second because he's going to be four in a row All-Star at the end of this year. That's okay. You're Tom Morrissey, who is coming out from the cold. Do you think he'd be the next best Limerick player?
Yeah, I think so. I think we don't always get it right. Maybe we have to hold our hands up and say we didn't have Tom Morrissey on the list, and by God we were wrong. But we're going to eat our humble pie.
We're after getting knocked out of Championship, lads. We got it wrong with the team selection.
You know yourself. Sometimes the best performance you can ever give as a player is be injured and miss a match where the team loses.
That's a fact. Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
I'm a big fan of Tom Morrissey. Massive fan. Yeah. But the pecking order, I would still have probably Cian Lynch, Sean Finn, Tom Morrissey, Kyle Hayes.
And where does Hegarty fit in the list?
Probably next, and then Will O'Donoghue just after him.
My God. And I wonder, do Limerick people agree with that? Because, And we're obviously putting Gillane behind all of them. Even though we don't really rate him, people end up thinking that we don't rate him, but we absolutely do rate him. So then, where does Conor Whelan fit in that pecking order? We got it so wrong with him. I think he's up there, probably in the top 5.
Relax now, Shane. Relax now.
Well,
he's a very good player, but like what is he? He's one All-Star throughout his Galway career, correct?
Let me just double check.
And
yeah, but you know yourself that those All-Star things aren't always right.
Yeah, no, I do know that, but there's no other year where he deserved an All-Star. I think you're after taking a big departure here now. I'd agree with you on what. Small bit. I'll agree with you on Conor Whelan. Flash, come on now. He should be in the top 15. Conor Whelan's a top class forward. I'd agree. He should be. I have no problem with the Galway place in the top 10 moving to Whelan from Canning, but he would be at the lower end of the 10 for me.
Okay, right. Well, where's Jamie Barron falling in this?
The lower end of the 10 also.
Wow. So where's
Nicky Quaid? It's not wow. It's just the amount of class that comes ahead of him. Nicky Quaid is a brilliant goalkeeper, but I still have him behind all the outfield players that we've mentioned there.
Okay, all of them. And we're basically, where are Galway other than Conor Whelan here? Brian Concannon had a quiet season, can't justify having him in here. Cathal Mannion, I thought for most of the game against Waterford, he wasn't really seen, can't really have him in there. Is Dahi Burke dropping out of the top 10?
Well, he had a very quiet year. His role is unknown at the moment. I don't know what he's going to do next year. I'm a big fan of his, but you kind of have to. I suppose you have to take what you're seeing at the moment.
You're only as good as your last game to Verney.
I do. I have no issue with saying that. Like probably 5 Limerick players minimum in this.
John O'Sullivan says on ability, Whelan is better than every Limerick forward. I'd agree with that.
On ability, yeah, but sure, like on ability, there's some amount of lads are better than other lads, but the Limerick lads, in fairness, are, you can say, yes, if he was in that Limerick team, but those lads are in that Limerick team and they're producing it every day. Whelan is in another team, a very talented team. He's not in like a lower tier team or anything like that, far from it, but he hasn't delivered. He's delivered flashes of brilliance. He was very good this year when a lot of other lads were poor. So to me, his stock does rise, and I think that's enough to have him in the top 10.
Better than Cian Lynch, actually, says Flash. No, actually, sorry, I'll take that back. I put Cian Lynch number 1 on ability as well.
The minute you said it, you had your head down laughing because you knew you were wrong.
Well, look, I was wrong. Unlike yourself, I'd have the class to admit it. So, are we looking at any more Waterford lads? Stephen Bennett, Caleb Lyons, Ty Burke's obviously been injured. He'd probably be in this conversation otherwise.
Yeah, no, he would be in the conversation if he was fit, and hopefully will come into the conversation next year. But I think we can get properly stuck into it now. I have to say, I think we can get properly stuck into it. I'd still have Lynch at 1. I'd still have Tony Kelly at 2.
Yeah, Sean Finn at 3.
Sean Finn at 3. Okay.
Is TJ Reid still in here? And if he is,
he has to come down a small bit. He has to come down. Definitely has to come down a small bit.
He definitely would have to, yeah. So
Sean Finn was 3. That's the second Limerick player. Tom Morrissey was the third Limerick player in our sequence there.
Yeah, is he better than Conor Whelan?
Well, he's been more effective in recent years than Conor Whelan has.
Yeah, I do see a comment here from Conor Heaney. Did Whelan ever get 2-2 in an All-Ireland final?
No, he did not.
No.
I think Whelan was quiet in both All-Ireland finals he played, to be fair. Noel Connors
scored a goal that time, though.
At the very end, Shane. At the very end, having been kept very quiet that day.
Yeah. Is Owen Cody in there?
The top 10 hurlers in the country. Nah,
he's in on potential. He could go there. He could go there.
He could in time, yeah. He could in time,
yeah. Right, so we're saying Lynch, Kelly, Finn. Then are we putting Tom Morrissey next?
He's not far off, I can tell you that.
Yeah, and I don't see too many people getting their comments in telling us who should be higher up the list. Because, I've already said with Tipperary, the way Tip played this year and even last year, you can't really justify anyone outside of Jason Ford. And I'm just not quite sure he gets into that list at the moment.
Look at how consistent Morrissey has been in recent years. He's been outrageous in the last couple of years. Could get nominated for Hurler of the Year again this year. Might just miss out. What was in the top 5 hurlers this year. And Morrissey was in, to me, he was the top hurler last year, or in the top 2. So
Okay,
I have no problem putting Tom Morrissey in 4.
Okay, Morrissey 4. Then after that, are we fitting in Jamie Byrne, Whelan, Nicky Quaid, TJ Reid?
Remember,
Jason
Ford?
Like
Austin Gleeson was at 7 the last time. So has anything changed your opinion of him?
Well, let's see. Against Tipperary, he did get his name on the score sheet, got a goal. Really good against Clare the first day out, when the team was absolutely terrible. Didn't he score 4 from wing back plus a free? So he was very good that day. He scored a bit against Tipperary as well. I'm trying to remember exactly what he scored. 1-3, I think, that day, including a couple of sidelines. How did he go against Limerick in the All-Ireland semi-final, do you remember?
Quietish, put over a line ball. I think he might have still ended up with 4 points. 1 could have been a long-range free, a line ball, and 2 from play, if my memory serves me right, or thereabouts. But
they were beaten handily enough.
Yeah, no, to be fair, a lot of players have struggled against Limerick, and that's not to do even with lack of individual brilliance. It's just to do with you're coming up against a machine, and it's very hard for any one man to break down a machine.
Gleeson blows hot and cold too much, says SSRI.
I think he's been an awful lot hotter than colder in the last 2 years. He's
been
predominantly hot.
Like you said, 5 points against Limerick, a free, a sideline, and 3 from play. I think he's pretty high up this list, actually, considering what he's doing. Even the day against Laois, when he was thrown up full forward and they didn't play all that well that day. I remember him catching a couple of great balls and he got 1 or 2 nice scores. I think he has to be pretty high up this list.
He was 7 the last time. I'd be happy enough. I'd be happy enough for him to stay around 7.
Yeah. And so would you put Gerard Hegarty ahead of him and Kyle Hayes?
I'd probably have Hayes next. In the top 5, you could have 4 Limerick lads.
Yeah, and the way they're dominating, it's probably fair enough too, isn't it?
It's like if we'd done this in 2008, like you'd be looking at what? You'd be looking at Henry, JJ, Tommy, Owen Larkin. Like, is that the territory we're in? Like, I think it kind of is.
Yeah, it's probably not. So we're looking at Lynch, Kelly, Finn, Morrissey, Hayes, even Hegarty next, and then Austin Gleeson.
Hegarty, Austin Gleeson. Yeah, I'd be okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Seamus Flanagan been mentioned here by Jercanti.
Big fan of Seamus Flanagan. I do think there are better individual talents within that Limerick setup than him, but that's not having a go at him. It's just there's so many good players to pick from there.
So if Austin Gleeson is 7, I'd be looking at Conor Whelan for number 8.
You're looking at Conor Whelan, Jamie Byrne, Will O'Donoghue. Those sort of TJ Reid is still to come into the mix there as well.
And we're dropping Owen O'Donnell out of it because we haven't seen enough from lately. Nicky Quaid been mentioned. Any case for Jason Ford on your behalf?
Not enough, to be honest with you. Not enough. Not enough. I need to see it throughout a whole season and not just sporadically.
Yeah, some people are not happy with my mentions of Whelan, but I honestly think he's absolutely brilliant, and they should be trying to get every single ball to his hands. No way on Gleeson, lad says, well, Verney was right before to say that he had been consistent for about 18 months, but last day out he fell back into his old trick of being anonymous in the big game. 3 points from play when you're getting hammered by Limerick. I don't see that as anonymous. Lose to Clare, scored 4 points from play from wing back. I don't see that as anonymous. Moved up full forward, did well. Against Tipperary, full forward, scored 1-1 from play. I don't agree with that take.
He's very divisive, isn't he? He's very, like Psycho mentioned about Aiden O'Shea earlier, he is very, very divisive. I have to say, and it's one of the viewers who said, like, if Jamie Byrne is in, Will O'Donoghue has to be ahead of him.
Yeah, I know that's fair, just based on their matchups. But then are we saying, like, with Limerick being such a superior team overall across the field, does it kind of mean that he's going into a battle that he can't win every time?
Potentially, but I just haven't seen Will O'Donoghue. I can't remember him playing a bad game in recent years at all.
Yeah.
Where does TJ Reid fit into this? We have the top. Would it be right in saying we have the top 6, 7 filled?
If you're happy enough with Gleeson at 7, there we have, yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy. No, I'm happy with Gleeson at 7. Yeah, put Conor Whelan at 11. He can be like, the 19th hole.
I see Jack Nulty saying TJ over Whelan. How can you say that he's not as good, but still arguably important for Kilkenny? Whelan good, but hasn't dragged Kilkenny to Galway to the big wins when needed. So, and there's a bit of that talk going here. But like, even when we're talking top 10 hurlers, we're talking about what do we expect to even see from them next year. And I see Whelan's graph continuing to go that way, whereas any player in their mid-30s is going to find it harder to do that. Like Whelan is still only 20. Ridiculously, he's only 24.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point. But TJ's graph, when higher, has been phenomenally higher than Conor Whelan's.
Yeah, but we're talking about right now. What you did for me 2 years ago is no longer really. I mean, next year we know that Conor Whelan is going to be the focal point of that Galway attack. If they get the right man in charge, let's say they get Micheál Donoghue in charge, and they go well next year, Conor Whelan's going to be at the edge of the square. There might be decent ball going into him, and no defender is going to want to mark him. And he'll have, like, this will be the first time that every ball will be directed at him, because in the past it's all about getting the ball to Joe Canning. So I can see him going off next year if Galway play well.
You can see that, and you're basing that on the potential that you see. Whereas with TJ Reid, you've seen that for the guts of about 6 or 7 years now, albeit this year was a good bit quieter. I do think there's a balancing act there between what you think you're going to see and what you've already seen numerous times over the last couple of years. I'd have TJ in around 8, if I'm honest.
Yeah, Aaron says Gleeson is above all Limerick lads, bar Keane Lynch, in my opinion. Think about what he could do in the Limerick side. As a team, Limerick are brilliant, but most of the Limerick players in other teams. Verney just loves hammer and tip, lads. Mentions Tony Kelly is scoring a lot from play against Limerick. Yeah, and in the first round, maybe in a final, no. Conor Heaney.
They didn't play them in the final. To be fair, they've only played them in the first round, so he can only score against them when he got the chance to score against them.
Horgan has to be in the top 10 for consistency alone and dependability for scores. Gleeson ahead of 14 Limerick players. Haha, stop drinking on a Monday. Lads, don't be like that to each other. And I don't think they'd be superstars. So I would have Whelan ahead of Reid here, because I've really rated Whelan for years, and I can't believe we didn't talk about him earlier in the year.
You're a gas man. Galway played 2 games this year and were knocked out of the championship. Conor Whelan wasn't in the top 10 in either of our previous 2 attempts, and now you want to have him in ahead of have him in ahead of one of the greatest hurlers of all time
because of the trajectories. Yeah,
Shane, you're basing it on far too much on potential. You could also say in the recent years that Conor Whelan is going to explode. He's going to explode. It hasn't really happened yet. We think it's going to happen, but it hasn't really happened yet.
Like, even when they were poor against Dublin, Whelan scored 1-1. Last year, terrorised Tipperary in the back door. Wasn't he very good in the All-Ireland semi-final last year when others were quiet against Limerick?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking there, when's he going to, kind of explode? And
explode was the word I used. Yeah, like
yeah.
has exploded at different
stages.
No,
of course he has. But like, you're talking about, like, is this guy going to be taking over games next year? And I can see Whelan doing that. And I think his track record is that he generally plays really, really well and class in some games. And generally the main man is put on him, just like Reid. So at 24 years of age, to me, there's more in it.
Who's more important to their side?
Next year, as in going forward.
Well, for the 2022 championship, who's more important?
Whelan. Because I can see...
Do you really think so?
Next year, I think that Kilkenny will be more reliant on Owen Cody and Adrian Mullen. I'd have to say, I do think that. Like, he's still going to be there and going to take massive watching and that type of thing. And he's still absolutely class, hence why we're talking about him in the top 10. But I can see him being probably just that... Yeah, those 2 lads, Mullen and Cody, being the guys. Whereas Whelan is going to be the absolute focal point of that attack for Galway.
Yeah, it's interesting. I still wouldn't have Whelan ahead. like I can't. Just based on like we've seen flashes, and a lot of it has been in league games as well. To be honest with you, a lot of his best stuff has been done in league games where he's been terrorising defenders.
Hey, there's a question. S. Law, transfer market. Who would you pay more money for, Whelan or TJ?
Depends. If it was like a 2-year deal, TJ. If it was a long-term 5-year, 6-year deal, Whelan.
Right, so to play 70 minutes in every match next year when the round robin is back, and you're probably going to be playing 4 games in 5 or 6 weeks, who do you want?
I would say TJ is probably one of the most durable players in the game.
Yeah,
I'd take TJ. He has hardly missed a minute. I don't think he's missed a minute of championship. When was the last time he missed a minute of championship? I can't remember, to be honest with you.
Is Whelan the new Callan for Stapleton? The betrayal?
Yes, he is.
Relax, Shane. When did Whelan score 6 points from play against Limerick in a final? Lynch is lauded for 6 in the final, but Ford is not. Inconsistency. Yeah, I do. I feel I need a bit of support from the Tipperary public who are watching here. I'm not getting that support for Ford. It's very hard for me to push him when people aren't rolling in behind me. Shane is getting flustered over this Whelan stuff, like him saying there was an argument to not have Shefflin in the Limerick 2021 Kilkenny 2008 team, when of course I was pointing out statistics and facts. Liam Sheedy, after he finished up, said if there was a transfer market, Nicky Quaid would be his top transfer target. He's like a quarterback, he said.
I tell you, I wouldn't like to be one of the Tipperary goalkeepers.
Yeah?
It's an interesting comment. If you were one of the Tip goalkeepers, what would you be thinking?
Yeah, okay. Limerick players are a bit one-sided, though, according to Shane.
The 5 or 6 Limerick players that we're going to have in the top 10 are a bit one-sided. We need to nail this down here. I'm going with Reid at 8, Whelan at 9, and Will O'Donoghue at 10.
No, I think Conor Whelan's ahead of TJ Reid at this stage. Just, we're looking at one lad entering his peak and another guy who's going to be retired in the next year or so.
Yeah, we're also looking. Yeah, okay. But we're also looking at like one of the best players that's ever played, who has consistently done it. Fair enough, he didn't do it this year. Even if he's on the wane a small bit, if he gets back even the 2019 level of form, he will, and Conor Whelan stays with how he played, in the last couple of years. TJ Reid will have more of an impact in the championship next year than Conor Whelan will.
Reid was held scoreless from play in a number of games in 2019, and then last year and this year just gone was quieter. So, to me, I don't buy that.
Just 1 second now, Shane.
Yeah, there's a lot of heat there.
The sun is shining in there.
Yeah, Verney's there. He'll be back in a second now. Just a couple of comments here. Limerick, or Joe LK20, Limerick players are a bit oh, sorry, we had that already. Your Tipperary faithful haven't shown up in the comments like your beloved hurling team in the second half of the Munster final, says Flash. Owen O'Donnell gone, robbery. Well, we haven't finished up just yet. Did Verney invest in a vanity light? Very lit up face today. If you were young Tipperary, if you were a young Tip goalkeeper, they all are, they'd be thinking, I'd need to get better. That's a fair comment too. And just see a couple of more comments in here before bringing back in Michael Verney. Just a reminder, we are brought to you by OurGame. And if you want to get this Tyrone jersey or any of the other ones, go to OurGame, use the promo code OurGame. Please do subscribe to the channel on all the platforms, especially on YouTube if you want to hit the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner, and go to patreon.com/OurGame if you want the audio podcast. So look, I'm having Whelan ahead of TJ Reid here, and I'm not hearing any more about it.
Well, listen, I need to go and cook some dinner, and I need to actually go and do a few bits and pieces. So we'll go Whelan 8, Reid at 9, and Will O'Donoghue at 10.
So you're leaving out Jamie Byrne?
Well, on the basis of what I said earlier, those two have matched up. When they've matched up the 3 times they've met in recent years, O'Donoghue has had the strong hand all 3 times.
And what about Jason Ford and Nicky Quaid? They're out of the picture as well, are they?
I think they are. If Ford's able to do, half of what he did against Limerick on a more consistent basis, he'd work his way in a heartbeat. But it's just that consistency. And like that is a criticism that is thrown out by many Tip faithful as well, is that you get the flashes, but that you don't get it often enough.
Okay, so we'll just bring it up one last time on screen here and read through it. And so there we go. Cian Lynch, number 1, Tony Kelly 2, Sean Finn, Tom Morrissey, Kyle Hayes, Grode Hegarty, Austin Gleeson, Conor Whelan, TJ Reid, and Will O'Donoghue. As ever, we'll agree to disagree on some of that. And one thing, by the way, this was mentioned earlier about Aiden O'Shea when he surprised that girl. There is a picture of it. One of our viewers did send that in. So
very good.
Look at it. So that's it. That's our top 10. We've talked about a load on the show. Please do keep the comments flying in. And obviously, as I said before, please do subscribe to the channel on all the different platforms and on YouTube here. We're looking to get it up to 10K. So please do that.
I hear there's a prize for when it goes to 10K. You're going to go back to all your subscribers, and there's going to be a prize. So everybody get to the 10K. Push that button.
I hope you're going to pay for the prize. All right, thanks very much. Reminder again, brought to you by orgaretro.com. Use the promo code OurGame to get 15% off. Thanks, Michael.
Cheers, Chet.